Welcome to the Let's Fight a Boss video game podcast. The world's strongest video game podcast. I am sitting here with two of the indisputably most Dublin-based video game podcasters. To my left, coming once again to us from deep from Dimension X, it's Neve.
Hi.
To my right, coming all the way from the back of the shelf, it's Bryan.
Oh, I'm way past that expiration date.
Hey, you guys.
I think you got a couple weeks in you.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think it's getting crusty.
I'm getting lumpy.
Yeah, it's no good.
I've got a lot of skin.
Bryan has a fucking crazy amount of skin.
Yeah, I'm like a walrus. A lot of blubber. So how you doing, Neve?
Yeah, how's it going?
I'm doing all right.
Let's get into it. Let's tap into like what is going on with Neve lately.
I guess I'm doing all right. I'm trying out this new voice because.
Oh really? When are you gonna start?
Yeah.
I've been workshopping it. I don't know if it's quite ready.
And do you want to like do it soon or?
Yeah, I'm.
Hang on one goddamn minute.
You sound Canadian.
Oh fuck! The jig's up.
Do we let a second fucking Canadian on this podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, you're Foxcade, aren't you?
Yeah, fuck.
Foxcade, YouTube's own.
The mask has come off. I tore it off like a Spy Family.
Yeah. I would like to say that I didn't think something was weird, and I really didn't, so this is a huge shock to me.
Same here.
Yeah, I was holding it together quite well, I'd like to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got her inflection down like...
Yeah,
exactly.
And physically, you two are nearly identical.
Oh yeah, no.
Oh, yeah.
It's the exact same silhouette. Like you could not tell them apart if there was in the dark or if there was a light bloom behind.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the only giveaway is that I have blonde hair. Other than that, like...
See, Neve has blonde hair sometimes.
Yeah, depends on, you know...
Well, that's how I knew I'd get you. Just like, oh, just one of Neve's, like, hair choices this week.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I thought. It's like, oh, Neve dyed her hair again.
All right, so what would you like to be called?
Just in the podcast, you can just call me Shayne. You know, my friends call me Shayne, but the listeners call me Foxcade. You're not my friends.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I gotta draw that line in the sands. I guess just like
while we're on the subject as well, to the listeners, don't fucking say my name at all.
Yeah,
do not fucking say my name.
You could say my name 5 times, and if you say it a 6th time, I'm fucking bursting through that mirror. You're fucked.
I like the image of a horror movie, but instead of it like being like Bryan appears behind you, like it's like the lights turn off and turn back on and you're there. Instead, it's just like bursting through the window.
I feel like
it's a Kool-Aid Man.
I feel like I could write a great horror movie called Friends with Bryan.
So Neve is out sick. She suggested,
get well soon, Neve.
Yeah, get well soon, Neve.
Yeah, we love you lots. Hope you're doing
Shayne,
well
soon.
Tell her.
Get better soon. If you don't get your shit together, I am coming for your role on this podcast. Like Jennifer Hale, I'm just gonna come in and swoop that empty spot
because that's how that works. Apparently,
that's how that works.
Yep.
They're gonna put the audition role out. Project Friends, and
that is how I made all my other friends.
Yeah.
For okay, look, for all the super tender, anxious teeny weenies, Neve is sick. She suggested maybe Shayne could sub in. We weren't sure if it was going to be a 3-person or a 4-person episode this time.
I was hopeful we were going to be able to do a 4-person.
Yeah,
which these things happen.
I am kind of sad Neve isn't here because I thought that'd be a nice 4-person.
But we're going to do what we can with what we got, and it's going to be a weird one. I was looking at the docket there. I don't know.
Yep, the news section is really something.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the news.
But yeah,
it gets really grim there. I
do like the idea that everyone on the podcast would be constantly in fear of being replaced. I think that would make us do better.
Oh, it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's how they do it in the video game industry.
Yeah.
And we are a video game podcast.
Kinda.
Yeah, not yet. So
how many people do you think stop listening to this podcast when we get to the video games?
My partner Rebecca openly admits I listen to the first 40 to 45 minutes, and then as soon as you get into the fucking games, I turn that shit off, Bryan.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, look, at least you listen to the first 45
So
minutes.
Michelle doesn't listen at all. She does not listen to this podcast. And if like I lived with me, I would not listen to this podcast.
No.
This is for Rebecca specifically. If you are still listening, we might talk about Yu-Gi-Oh later.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
We need to get that audience retention up.
So yesterday I was hanging out with Shayne. Today you were hanging out with him, John. There was a bit yesterday where he went on a Yu-Gi-Oh tangent, and I was like, "Oh, this is familiar." It's just Rebecca again shiting on about a card boy, and I just glazed over because like just the brain like.
I did
goes out the
appreciate
head.
that like it's that bit in The Simpsons when Homer runs into Ned in like the like apple juice factory.
Oh yeah,
and then he's like just like chatting to him about like, oh well, this is how you tell cider and juice, and then just Homer's brain goes, you can stay, but I'm leaving, and then you see like the image of his brain like go out the back.
Yeah,
that's what I saw in real time talking to Brian.
It's
I'm just like going off,
transparent, and they just slide it out. Yeah.
So, Shayne, if Let's Fight a Boss was a dating sim and you've dated 2 of the 3 options, how do you compare those 2 dates? Because we spent the day together today.
Yeah, but you know.
True.
I did put out.
That is a big sell, John. You've yet to put out today.
I'm the hard option, okay? Yeah. You got to get all the right answers. You got to
make sure to have the right present at the right time. It has to be the correct
in John's
ribbon.
defense, he did take us out for gelato after we went for food. So we did get dessert, which we didn't get. So
interesting, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, he put in the extra work.
You probably need.
Yeah.
Probably
This is all like factors that are being put into my very overly long written Let's Fight a Boss fan fiction, because that is what I'm known for on the internet.
But prolific Let's Fight a Boss fan artist.
Yeah, he's very big on AO3.
Yeah.
He knows we're real people, but he does not consider that in his writing.
I would say a good majority of it gets perhaps a little raunchy for my tastes, but there's like, I mean, you take the craft of writing very seriously.
It's definitely crossing a line, but that's his line.
Several lines even. Yeah.
Actually, Niamh's partner Rebecca, she listens to the podcast.
Oh yeah, she proper listens.
Now, I don't know if she's gonna listen to this one because Niamh's not on it. Rebecca, I'm calling you out. And you can message me on the side and be like, well, Brian, you know what? I did listen to the whole episode and gotta say, it was all right, but, you know, Niamh wasn't on it. So, you know, not up to the usual standard. And, you know, fair enough, but, you know, call my bluff. Just saying.
Fox, you have like a kind of varied experience in like martial arts and stuff.
Yes.
So for people who don't know, because it's one of the most like, not shocking, but it's one of the most jarring things when you meet Fox. He's kind of built like a Viking.
He's a big boy.
Yeah. And what stuff have you done?
So I did a couple of years boxing, a year or so with Muay Thai. I've been on like a decent long hiatus.
Happens.
It happens. I did a little bit of Wing Chun, a little bit of Jeet Kune Do. I was talking to you earlier. I've not done any grappling, none of the BJJs. But yeah, I've been on like a hiatus that I need to get back from, because originally it started because both my wrist was starting to hurt, and I think it was mostly just because of how I typed. I needed to crack that, and it was becoming a problem, and I was like worried. I was like, if I punch wrong, am I going to just shatter my tender wrist?
I do recommend getting one of those gels in front of the keyboard.
Oh, I already do.
Okay, good.
And
Very
then the
important.
other
John has
problem
one right here.
Is my ankle is a little tender from when I destroyed it doing rock climbing. So I'm always like worried. I was like, am I going to be like kind of bouncing around the ring? Because I get a little bouncy when I'm, boxing. Sure. And am I just going to like step on it wrong and just roll my ankle again? So it's kind of like, a lot of it's been like a mental thing.
And so out of all those martial arts, which would you say is your favorite?
I have just a biggest soft spot for boxing.
Yeah, boxing is like that's like a blank spot for me. Like I have some hands from Taekwondo, like we did ITF Taekwondo, which is like, punches to the face legal and all that. And I learned a little bit from there, but I would love to properly learn. The reason I bring all this up, I have been desperate to talk about the Jake Paul fights on this podcast forever.
Yeah.
Well, here's someone who will entertain that.
Here's someone who will entertain it. So Jake Paul came off his 6th fight recently?
Yes.
Defeating Anderson Silva, former UFC champion.
Which is
Anderson
nuts.
Silva. Yep. It's nuts. I completely expected it to happen.
Yeah. Well, he's been in retirement for a decent while, hasn't he? Because he shattered his legs a while back.
Yeah, but there was a time when Anderson Silva, like, they call him the Spider.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
He was the boogeyman of UFC.
Yeah.
No one was beating Anderson Silva, and he lost a fight to this social media influencer.
Yeah.
Which I think
that must not feel good.
It can feel good. What's your take on the whole thing?
That's why I think the whole idea of like, oh, these are staged, or like he got bought out. I was like, I don't know. Like he already makes a ton of money, and I don't know if personally, I don't know if my pride as a martial artist, especially someone of that caliber, would want to take the hit of, oh, you got beaten by some pretty boy from YouTube that isn't even a proper boxer. I don't know. I don't buy into that.
This is what I wanted to talk about, because I think the people who think these fights are rigged don't understand fighting.
Yeah.
Because there's a very specific thing that's happening here. To me, anyway, first of all, both Jake and Logan Paul, absolute freakish athletes.
Oh, yeah.
They are just, even Logan Paul in wrestling, I've talked about it before, unbelievably fucking talented. You know, very, just prime, not even people who work hard, which they do, but just absolute freakish ability. And I say that as someone who has no real feelings on Logan Paul and actively dislikes Jake Paul.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the similar boat. I had friends that were genuinely shocked when I was telling them about Logan Paul not only is in WWE now, he is actually a really good wrestler.
Yeah. Logan Paul's only problem is that he hasn't realized he's a heel.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Which I think it makes a really good heel, though, is one that thinks they're a face.
Yeah, they just need to start that being the story.
Yeah.
You know, because that's Logan Paul's whole story. But anyway, so people, I think, who don't understand fighting are how does a fucking former UFC champion lose to a YouTuber in a fight?
My answer is go, if you're not squeamish about bones breaking, look up Silva's injury from a few years ago, and that's probably one of the answers right there. Because you watch back that footage, and he's I can't remember who he's fighting, but he kicks someone's leg, and you see his shin wrap around the other
just turns into jelly.
Yeah.
And you just see it turn into jelly in real time.
So this guy has recovered, but he has a clear weak spot from it.
Yes.
So I think it's definitely that, but I think there's a lot going on with these fights, and it's not that they're rigged. It's that so Jake Paul, very young, very strong,
very hungry,
all the money in the world, all the time in the world. He can literally afford the fucking best martial arts training in the world.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I love martial arts, but and what I love about martial arts is, someone small can defeat someone big, blah 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 blah. But if you're rich, you could hire the literal most, not even the most talented martial artists, the most talented trainers. You saw that clip of Mark Zuckerberg going around recently where he's doing MMA.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just want to say, I would beat the fucking shit out of Mark Zuckerberg. If he wants to take up this challenge, I will 100% do it.
Yeah, Zuck on this, Mark.
Zuck, I would fucking just annihilate you. It would be the worst day of your life.
Hey, Zuck, you're fucked.
But people were impressed with his level of skill. But it's yeah, when you can fucking set your own schedule and hire literally anyone in the world to teach you, you probably get pretty good.
The dude has infinite resources.
Yeah.
It's kind of comparable to you see in movies, these actors have godlike bodies, and it's yeah, when you have the money and time to invest in the world's best personal trainers, it's not that hard to get a body like that.
Calorie control is really easy when you have a chef.
Yeah, when you have a chef and when you have someone that's whole job is to do that for you.
Yeah. So then okay, Jake Paul, and not taking away from his actual talent, because I do think he's very, very talented person, but it's okay, then look at who he's fighting. This is his third UFC fighter he's beaten.
Wow.
The other two he knocked out. and this went to points, and he knocked him down in the final round.
Yeah.
They're UFC fighters, though. Okay, so you take a UFC fighter. What do you need to be a UFC fighter?
Multidisciplined, I guess.
You need boxing. You need like kicks.
Yeah.
You need wrestling, and you need grappling. If you're not familiar, wrestling is more stand-up. Grappling is on the ground. So that's 4 disciplines. So you're taking these people who have spent their lives honing their bodies into these 4 disciplines, and then you're taking away 75% of their arsenal. Think about it like an RPG. It's the difference between someone loading all their stats into one stat and someone who's trying to make an all-round build, who then all of a sudden can't use 3/4 of the all-round build.
Yeah, so they're all like 7 out of 10 pips.
Yeah.
But that's all you get in the game.
Yeah, and then you're fighting someone who's at 20.
Yeah.
You know, they've put all their experience into this one thing. And so, like, yeah, like, Jake Paul, like, can outbox them because all he knows is boxing. Yeah. You know, it's like all his experience is in that. Then he's also exclusively going for UFC fighters out of their prime.
I was going to say, I want to see Jake fight someone that is in their prime, because not only just the UFC fighters, but even Floyd Mayweather.
So
like they've all been like people that it's like they're a big name.
With the
but
Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul fight, like Floyd Mayweather is up there in terms of age. He's also the most defensive boxer fucking ever. Like Floyd Mayweather doesn't knock people out. He stands back and he waits for people to
gas out.
Yeah, that's what he does, you know. But also like there was like a fucking like the size difference between Mayweather and Logan was so ridiculous as well. But so, like, what's happening then is, like, Jake Paul is maneuvering these retired fighters into this super defeatable position, you know? And, like, you're talking about, like, you'd like to see, like, Jake Paul fight, like, Floyd Mayweather or someone else. Like, I will tell you what I want to see Jake Paul fight. A ranked boxer.
Yeah.
That's a completely different thing. And, like, you know, the first thing he did when he beat Anderson Silva is he called out Nate Diaz. Another fighter completely past his prime who's like a UFC fighter who's not a boxer, you know? And it's like, at this point I'm like, come on.
I will give him points for being like smart about it, because he is picking names that are considered like all-time greats, but it's all-time greats 10 years ago.
Jake Paul's a fucking idiot. Jake Paul is also kind of a genius.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that, you don't understand him. But yeah, because it's just all I see about Jake Paul is like rigged. These fighters taking a massive payday. They're not. He's just maneuvering them into a super beatable circumstance. There's some real like Sun Tzu Art of War shit happening here. And like I'm not saying it's bad. Like separating everything I dislike about Jake Paul and all the fucking ways that guy is like a problem, I'm kind of impressed with what he's doing.
It's a clever strategy.
Yeah. This would be a great like villain arc in Grappler Backy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's interesting what he's doing. He knows if he fights a ranked boxer, at least right now, that's it for him. Because like, you know, Jake Paul has grown up doing YouTube pranks. Ranked boxers have grown up boxing.
Yeah.
So like, that's what's happening here. But yeah, so I guess to conclude, Mark Zuckerberg, I will cave your fucking face in.
I'll be the guest referee on that one.
Yeah. Oh man, I want a screw job to happen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sing the national anthem.
Yes.
Someone asked to. Which one will I sing? Who knows?
Guys, I watched Barbarian.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Tell us about it.
Hard film to talk about because like
yeah, it is.
And like I don't really want to spoil it or anything, but like you are watching this film for the shock, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I think what I would say is like I had a lot of fun watching this movie. Like I watched it and I howled and I screamed and I laughed and there was a lot of there's a lot of really fun dumb horror shit in this movie.
It's a hoot and a holler.
Yeah. I think maybe from what I was seeing people say online, people were kind of talking about like, oh, you know, there's stuff happening in this movie. And then I think it was your Rebecca Bryan who kind of said to me like, well, it's kind of dumb.
Oh yeah.
You know, and like I'd never heard someone say
No,
that.
because some people talk about it like it's hereditary or something, where they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh no, I like obviously people don't want to spoil it, but then they're being cryptic to the point as if it's more complicated." It's a very straightforward movie.
Yeah.
That it's a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys watched Malignant.
Oh yeah.
Is it kind of like that where you
Oh,
don't
yeah,
want to
absolutely.
like spoil the
Yeah,
like
yeah.
big thing, but
Same
also you don't want to like oversell it as like, oh my god, it's gonna blow your mind. It's like, no, I just don't want to like take away the
Sorry,
like fun.
I'm blanking on Malignant. I know I've seen it.
That's the one that came out last year, and it's the one where the woman gets assaulted by her husband in the back of the head,
Oh,
and then
okay,
from
yeah.
there,
There you
strange
go.
events happen, and she's witnessing murders, but
So,
she's not doing them.
I will say, like, Barbarian is definitely like a more pure horror film than Malignant.
Yeah.
It does not have a moment that matches the moment from Malignant.
Are you talking about the chair?
I'm talking about the revolving camera reveal. That
yes, okay.
was just
That is a good one, but God, I love that chair shot so much.
What was the chair shot again?
It's just like someone just fucks a chair at
Okay.
someone.
It's the bit when they're in the police station,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
ceiling's way too high, but it's because they have to do stunts in that environment. Like, and it's clearly not a real police station.
So Barbarian is a film about a woman who rolls up to an Airbnb. She rings the doorbell, and oh dear, there's a kind of spooky. What's his name? Adam Skarsgård.
It's Bill Skarsgård,
Bill Skarsgård.
who played Pennywise in the.
Who's a fantastic
Yes.
actor.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
He's very good.
And he has also rented this Airbnb. They're double booked, and things go from there. And what I read about this film after was that the first 30 minutes were written as a short film that was based on a book that the author read called The Gift of Fear, which is a film or which is a book about how women should be they should pay attention to red flags in men.
Yeah.
And that whole sequence is really unsettling and really interesting.
Yeah, and just the fact that you know Bill Skarsgård from recent horror movies, and he moves very quietly, he's always out of focus, and like from the get-go you're like, I don't trust this guy.
And you know the fucked up thing, and maybe this, like, watching it as a man, I'm like, shit, I don't know that I would have done anything different to Bill Skarsgård. Because, like, yeah, you don't want to send the woman out into the rain and the dark, you know?
Yeah, because the whole thing is that you're out at the Airbnb at 10 o'clock at night, and there's a huge storm, and she literally can't see a foot in front of her.
Yeah.
And she parks up the car and goes up to the
And it's like
door.
a really bad neighborhood.
Yeah, but,
And the guy's already there, and
He's like, oh, well, you can just stay here.
and he is taken aback because he's a bit uncertain about the situation, but like he knows that from his perspective, he's the one that
yeah.
has less to
And
worry
so
about.
him
Yeah.
trying to come across as, like, less creepy, basically be like, I'm not going to murder you, only comes across as more creepy.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely do that, you know?
Yeah, you'd just be a really pathetic gentleman.
Just please come in, take a seat.
Exactly, right? But things progress and the film takes, like, a turn. On the IMDb, I was reading that basically, like, Jordan Peele kind of...
He watched a version of it, nearly edit, didn't he?
I think he gave notes on the script as well.
Wow.
And I can definitely feel him in this, you know. But I guess, like, my problem with it is I feel like the film at several points is really touching on the idea of sort of femininity and, like, what women have to endure from men, and kind of flipping that on its head a little bit, if you get me, Brian.
Yeah.
But it never really says anything.
Nope. It feels like it's gonna.
Yeah, it always feels like it's on the cusp of like making a really interesting piece of commentary, and never does. So, like, to me, like, it was a nice schlocky piece of popcorn cinema. Like, I was really enjoying it when I was watching it. It's like the opposite to We're All Going to the World's Fair, where like all the way through We're All Going to the World's Fair, I was like, am I getting anything out of this movie? And then by the time it was over, I was like, yeah. And I kept thinking about it. This is the opposite. I had a great time watching it, and then when it was over, I was like, huh.
Yeah, like for me, as soon as the credits start rolling, I was like, I feel very different to how I felt like an hour ago
Yeah.
when it was a different kind of movie, I guess. It was a very different genre.
Yeah. it was kind of like seeing a magician, and he's like, I'm gonna do a magic trick, I'm gonna do a magic trick, and then at the last minute he just turns around and fucking runs away. You know, like it was that like, oh, I thought maybe we were.
I did get tricked, but
Yeah,
not the
but it
payoff I
was
was
that feeling. It's
expecting.
like, well, I guess stuff happened. You know.
Yeah.
I love films where they'll use a single location for the most part, and like you get very familiar with that house, and you learn the ground floor or first floor, I guess in this case, but then you learn about the basement, and then you learn about other parts,
Other stuff.
Yeah, and the film very much makes clear who's a good guy and who's a bad guy in this movie. They take the opportunity to make fun of landlords, which I appreciated.
The real villains,
Yeah.
real monsters.
Well, some might say the real victims in all this.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. When did being successful become a crime?
There's one character and you're introduced to them, and clearly you're not meant to like them, but you're still kind of following their story because that's who because the camera's on them, and you're like, I don't like this person, but I want to see what happens.
So with that person, Brian, you're talking about one bit in particular,
Yeah,
where they
where-
answer the phone.
Yep.
They answer the phone with a slur. And Brian, like,
it has some fucking shitlord energy to it.
yeah,
That
absolutely.
was
It's not clever. It's just shitty. But like the fact that someone is still doing that. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
I've heard different reactions for that, where some people just think it's so fucking funny because
What?
because like you don't know how to react to it, and you're just like,
The shock of it really gets you.
Oh,
Yeah.
my reaction was like, this guy fucking sucks. Like, my first thought was, imagine hanging out with this guy.
Yeah.
But then the next scene is him catching up with an old buddy of his.
It's even worse.
And it's the worst conversation I've heard. And then there's a bit where he's talking to his parents, and he's actually in the same hometown as them, but he's lying about it because he just doesn't want to talk to them.
Have I ever told you guys? Well, I know, Shane, no, haven't you? I've told you because this is your first time on this podcast. But have we ever talked about the time when I was at a secondary school reunion, and one of my classmates gave me a lift home? Brian, have I never told you this story?
Primary school.
No, secondary school.
Second. Okay. What year? What age were you?
This was about, I was maybe 29, 30.
Okay.
Right. So this guy gives me a lift home, and we're talking about like our significant others. He has a fiance, and I'm with Michelle, and I've been with Michelle about 10 years. And then we're driving home, and he's like, how long you been with Michelle? And I was like, I think about 10 years at this point. And then he's like, wow, no way, man, that's crazy. You know, he's like, yeah. And I was like, how long you been with your fiance? And he's like, about 2 years. And I was like, oh, cool. And then there's a kind of silence, and then he just goes, okay. How many times you cheated on her?
You have told me this, yeah.
Oh.
And I was like, no. And so like I can always see him. He's there holding the steering wheel, and he kind of looks over at me, and he looks back, and he looks over at me again, and he's like, John, come on. We're like,
John, come on.
guys.
It's,
It's just me.
But he's like, it's just us, you know? And I was like, I have seriously never cheated on Michelle. And he goes, you've never cheated on Michelle. And I've been like, I never once have cheated on Michelle. And then he's looking at me. He's not watching the road. He's like looking at me, and like the smile disappears from his face like slowly as it like sinks in.
Dude's fucking betrayed.
And he looks back,
thought he was with one
and
of
I
the boys.
swear to God, he goes like this. Fair play, man. Wow. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, for just doing what is acceptable.
Doing the literal bare minimum in a long-term relationship.
Did he try to help you fix that?
No, he didn't. And he was like, and do people ever try to like, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, sometimes, but you know, Michelle's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like that. And he was so like, just kind of speechless, you know, because that, and I at the end of it, I was just like, man, me and that dude live in such different worlds.
And what is considered cool or not cool.
Yeah, that guy should watch the Try Guys.
Oh, yeah.
He'd love it.
Yeah, there's been a really interesting development there, apparently.
But What were we talking about? Some horror movie?
Barbarian, yeah. I think it is worth watching this film.
Oh, totally. Like, I think the negative stuff I'm saying about this movie is only really because, like, there was a point where I was really feeling it. I was like, oh, this is some good shit. And, like, it is good schlocky horror.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't... I don't think it really has anything to say about anything, but it was, like, an enjoyable watch. Michelle fucking hated it.
Brilliant.
And, like, Michelle, like Midsommar is like one of Michelle's favorite movies. Like, she likes
Really?
horror. Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, she does.
Afterwards, I was like, one of your favorite movies is the movie. I'm gonna spoil some of Midsommar. I'm gonna give you guys a little time. Just skip ahead like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
One of your favorite movies is the movie where the girl covered in flowers watches her boyfriend burn to death. She looks at me right in the eye and she goes, "Yeah."
Yeah.
She just really likes Florence Pugh.
Oh, she's great.
If we hear about John burning up in a spire, at least we'll know where to start.
I mean, like, that's where to start. But, I mean, let's be real here. At this point, it could be fucking so many different things. You know what? Like, okay, all that said, Barbarian, like, that's a fun movie. Like, if you want a dumb movie to, like, howl at friends. Like, if you want to, like, scream with friends, that's probably a pretty good movie.
Oh, yeah, no. I'd say the more company you have over, the more fun it's going to be.
Yeah. I think I put it on kind of being like, let's really fucking get to some shit.
Let's watch some art.
Yeah. And it's not that.
No.
But it is fun. It is fun. Fox, you...
Yes.
His name's Shayne.
I'm always going to be Fox to me. I can't help it.
I'm going to call him
that's
Shayne.
fair. Yeah,
You
that's
have
fair.
watched a little indie show here, Seinfeld, I believe that's called.
Yeah, I know not a lot of people have
it's that-
talked about it. Yeah.
That's that sitcom from 1989.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Actually. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I've been progressively going through Seinfeld over the last few months since they added it to Netflix.
They did.
I
did.
bet our
about, like, a
mutual
year ago.
friend has... We have a mutual friend who is very into Seinfeld.
Oh yeah, loves it. Yeah.
Pug Duck.
Yeah.
Pug
yeah.
Duck is... Yeah.
He was the one who was like really recommending it to me when it was coming out on it, and I was like, Seinfeld's was always like a blind spot in my like sitcoms of that era, and I was like, I should give this a watch. So I've been progressively going through it, and I've watched like even a few episodes now when I've been on my like little trip into the UK and Dublin, and watching Seinfeld in the year 2022 is very weird because you naturally go a comedy is the quickest thing to age, like, because it is such a specific time, a specific cultural mindset.
Totally.
Yeah.
And especially with something like Seinfeld, which is very much based around
I guess, like,
social norms.
yeah, social norms and what is acceptable in different
Yeah,
situations.
and also how when you explain them out loud, you sound like an insane person, because
So-
they're all things we kind of like agree with, like on a non-speaking level. But as soon as you articulate it, it's like, oh, we sound like insane people that we think that this is how we should.
So there's one episode of Seinfeld I watched recently, and it was that George Costanza was uncomfortable getting a massage from a male masseuse.
Yes, yeah.
And that was real, like, oh, fucking seriously?
Yeah, and there's a whole thing about how he like kind of grazed his area, and he's like, oh, he didn't. What did he say? It was a specific phrasing. He's like, he didn't cup it, or, and he really thinks that the guy was making a pass at him.
Sure, George.
Yeah, it's like, but the thing is about that show is, on the one side, like, there's things that aged like fine wine, like that. It's like, this is still relevant today, 30 years after they wrote that episode. One episode that really stands out to me as, I don't want to quite say progressive, but very like forward thinking for the time of 1993, which is an episode called The Outing. And it's entirely about, through a, as these do, a mix up with a journalist that is interviewing Jerry Seinfeld. And at some point there's a misunderstanding that he and George Costanza are in a gay relationship with each other, because they keep saying like, oh, this is my writing partner, but the person thinks they're
Domestic partner.
domestic partners. And eventually they like clue in, oh, everything we've been saying sounds like innuendos, and we sound like a bickering old married couple. And they quickly go, oh, no, we're not gay. We're not gay. And throughout the episode, they have this one line where anytime they say we're not gay, not that there's anything wrong with that. And it's this very interesting thing where it's not just addressing like homophobia that's outright malicious, but like a hypocrisy where it's like, it's fine to be gay, but don't you dare call me gay. Yeah. Like, as soon as you start calling me homosexual, that's when we have a big problem.
It's a very unflattering thing to be told that.
Yeah. And it's such a funny episode when you see like just the lengths they're trying to go to of like making sure this person doesn't out them publicly, and just like all the standard Seinfeld stuff. And it's like, man, this aged really well. And it's very funny. And like, I saw this like Tumblr post a month ago that was really funny, and it was someone talking about how they identify as female, and they'll tell people, oh, you can use any pronouns, but in their head they kind of rank people based on what they do with that information.
Really interesting.
And someone replied, that's George Costanza behavior. And I was like, true. And someone made like a short, like little script of an interaction of what that would be like.
Oh, just like George and Jerry in the diner, and George explaining his fucking
he's like, oh, absolutely. And then it's like I was reading through, and it's like those characters have such a specific like way of talking that reading through this like dialogue piece, I can like hear this scene in my head. I can like hear it exactly. The thing that doesn't age well, particularly well, and it just has to do with the fact that we don't live in the same world of 1990s New York. So some stuff just, you watch it in 2022 and it just doesn't make sense. Like if you don't know what that was like in that time frame, it's like, what the fuck are they talking about? And the one that stands out to me that I was like, oh, this was not the scene I was expecting, is they're in the airport and they're flying out to, I think, Florida, because they have to go see Jerry's parents, and they are walking up to security, and they're like, oh, going through security is always such a hassle. And me, in this current year we live in, I was thinking, oh, this is gonna be an entire bit about how TSA is such a hassle and you gotta do all these minute things. And they go through it without any single problem at all, and then this episode plays out like normal. Like, you could cut out that scene and nothing would be changed. Yeah. And I went, oh, this is pre-2001.
Yeah.
Like, this is like an entirely different world that like we don't live in anymore. So it's very like, you're always kind of going back and forth between things that aged very well and things that just don't make sense anymore. And the common thing people talk about with Seinfeld is most of these problems wouldn't exist if people had cell phones.
Yeah, there's
That's
so many
crazy.
There's a lot of misunderstandings or people misinterpreting information, and if it was just being there at the right place at the right time with the correct information, all of this would be resolved.
Sometimes I kind of feel like cell phones ruined horror films.
Yeah,
I don't actually believe that, because I genuinely think the last 10 years of horror is maybe the best 10 years of horror. Like, I think there's so many amazing films that's been made. But yeah, it's weird. I think like the existence of cell phones changes a lot of shit.
Yeah, like there's one of the first, if anyone is wanting to like check out Seinfeld, I'd say if you want a decent taste of it, because it like every sitcom, it has that like growing pains of the first like season
yeah, the first season,
it's figuring itself
the first
out.
season is not even like a full batch of episodes.
Yeah,
and it ends, from what I remember, with Jerry and Elaine like start dating.
Yeah,
like they kiss, but then the next episode of the first episode of season 2, it's never addressed, and we were like, no, we didn't want to do that.
Yeah, we're just like, eh.
That was just a weird way we ended the first season, because we were forced by the network or something.
Yeah, we had this like kind of idea, and then we just didn't follow through with it. I'd recommend anybody interested check out the Chinese restaurant episode in season 2.
That's
when they
episode.
It's the bottle episode in the Chinese restaurant, and that's where they really figure out what they're doing with this like characters and concept. And one of the like B plots of the episode is George is trying to call a girl he was seeing because of an incident they had the previous night while they were, hooking up, and he's just trying to phone them on this like payphone on the wall. And a guy keeps like taking up the time, and he's like, I gotta call this girl, and then he won't get off the phone. And then they finally do get off the phone, and he walks over to reach it, and a girl beats him to it, and he grabs it. He's like, oh, sorry, I was in line. I was next line. She's like, well, if you were next, why do I have the phone in my hand? And he like turns around, and perfect example of what this show is about. He's like, we live in a society, and that's like the tagline of the entire show.
Wow.
Just, we live in a society.
Yeah.
And
I made the rules. I don't need to explain them.
yeah, exactly. Because he walked away from it, so technically he wasn't in line.
No, it's open.
But in his mind, it's like, I was there before you, and I've been waiting for 10 minutes. And he finally is able to get the phone, but he can't get a hold of her because he got the answering machine. He's like, okay, call the restaurant and ask for a stubby bald man, and I'll call you back. And then later on in the episode, they're having an entire different discussion. You hear in the background the restaurant, the person that like checks you and like goes like, oh, party of 4. He's going, Cartwright. And you as the audience are going, what the fuck, Cartwright? And you just think he's calling for someone. And then after they have their like little disagreement, George goes, okay, well, I'm going to go see if anyone's called for me. And he goes up to the guy. It's like, has anyone called for a Costanza? And he's like, oh, yeah, I just was calling for you. And it's like, yeah, Cartwright, right? And I was like, no, Costanza. He's like, oh, yeah, I called you like 5 minutes ago. She cursed and hang up. And he's like, oh. And it's like, again, that's like not something that makes sense in a modern era where everyone has a phone attached to their hip.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Did you watch the one where George is in a book club and he doesn't read the book? So yeah, like this is another 90s thing where, okay, George is in a book club, he doesn't read the book, but he's going to watch the movie adaptation of the book instead. So he goes to the video rental shop, but it's already been rented out that night.
So that was the shortcut. Like watching a movie was the shortcut.
Yeah.
There was
Yes.
no Wikipedia page.
No. And he goes to that home, and it's a father and a daughter watching the movie, and he's like, are you going to be done with it soon? And he's like, well, we just started it. And then there's a bit of a pause, and he's like, can I watch it with you? And the dad's like, yeah, all right. And the daughter's like, why? But then the mom comes home late from work. I think she's a nurse or something. She comes home late from his shift, and she's like, who's this man in the middle of the couch? And he's like, can I get more nuts? Like, he's just...
Yeah, he's like at home.
Yeah, and it was just... There's so many opportunities to kind of tell these stories, but you can't really... Like now you have to reinvent that.
Yeah, you'd have to rewrite. Fortunately,
I guess he could be like George. George's girlfriend took the Netflix password. He doesn't have access to it. He has to get someone else's Netflix. Like, I'm sure you could modernize it that way.
I think the proof that like Seinfeld will always have that like universal appeal is Curb Your Enthusiasm is still going strong, and that's by Larry David, who wrote Seinfeld, and he is supposed to be the George Costanza is supposed to be the insert for Larry David.
Yeah.
And also, if for my final sell of this, if you like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Seinfeld is the progenitor to that. I'm pretty sure those actors
I've always heard
have
about
said,
Always Sunny is like the characters of Seinfeld are meant to get worse and worse over the course of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Always Sunny starts where Seinfeld ended.
Yeah, that was what sold me on that show and like its general like pitch. I was like, oh, interesting. Okay,
So
yeah, look at that.
my girlfriend Michelle, like, she is basically in a constant state of rewatching Always Sunny. It's like her favorite show of all time, and she just is always rewatching it, and I love it so much.
That's their comfort show.
Yeah.
Because that started back in like 2004, 2005.
Oh, like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
mid-2000s.
It's fucking weird.
And comedy was very different back then.
I mean, the first episode is called "The Gang Gets Racist."
Yeah, they pretty clearly state what the show's going to be like,
Yeah.
in that like
And like, there's absolute missteps with early Always Sunny that like they've kind of owned up to a bunch of times, but yeah. Brian,
Yes,
you watched X.
I did. I'm going to talk about 2 horror movies. They're called X and they're called Pearl. These are made by the same team. John, is your chair okay?
Okay, this is a very good chair. It's very it cost money, but this armrest sometimes collapses by itself.
John's body is too big.
yeah.
It's not too big. I'm just very dense.
You saw the picture of what John did to his previous chair. He has a new chair and it is already beginning.
It's not. It's fine. It's a manufacturing fault.
Okay.
This is the chair like resisting, just like putting up its fight.
Yeah. Like the last chair John had looked like a scratch card.
Look, I'm a very dense, harsh person. I can't help it.
There's a lot of pebble dashing on his body. He's coarse.
Yeah, Michelle talks about how like being with me is painful.
You're very crunchy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I'm crispy. But that's different. I'm like a prawn cracker.
I was gonna say like, what? Do you like pop like Rice Krispies when you're putting milk?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
How about you, Shane? What are you?
I'm kind of in the middle. I'm kind of like those mini wheats, where it's like you put me in milk a little bit, and I like get a little soggy, but but dry, a little coarse.
So here we have this like it's a processed version of that called Weetabix, where it's no longer shredded, but rather it's been made into these briquettes, and and they're about like 3 inches by 1 inch or an inch and a half. So like they're these kind of like ovally rectangles, let's say. Okay. So they're like little bricks, and you do maybe 2 or 3 in a bowl. John, you probably do 3.
Yeah. But like I like Weetabix, but whenever you get like the nut, like the little
the oat.
It makes me gag.
It's like biting into a piece of fruit and you get the pip and you're like but when this mixes with the milk, you have a 5-minute window until it becomes a bonding seal, and it's thicker than cement.
It congeals.
I like my Raisin Brans and mini wheats, but it's always like I got a 5-minute timer after pouring in the milk.
Weetabix had one of my favorite advertisements of all time. Do you remember the Otabix advertisement?
Was it without a Bix or?
This truck pulls up.
Oh, it's a really long name, didn't it?
And it just and it's like a really long truck, and on the side of it, it says Weetabix, but instead of wheat, it's made with Otabix. And then this woman's looking at, and the driver gets out, and he's like changing his petrol or whatever. And then a woman's looking at it, and she's like, "They should have called it Otabix." And then it just goes, Otabix available now.
or it's like him coming up to like a junction and he's going to have to turn the truck and he can't fucking do it. Okay. X and Pearl are 2 horror movies that came out this year. X came out in March and Pearl has just come out. I think they were on streaming. I just watched them on the internet.
What does that mean, Brian?
It means I downloaded them illegally.
I see.
Yeah.
As long as you owned up to it.
Shane, would you mind calling the, well, as they're known in Ireland, the Gardaí Síochána?
Oh, yeah, I've been on speed dial with them the entire time.
I've been very inappropriate with them. And the hostel were like, look, if that person there is giving you trouble, there's a Garda station around the corner. And yeah, it's 1-800 Bryan is being mean to me.
Brian, I don't think that number does anything.
No, it doesn't. It's actually a number that I have, and it's a way to keep track on people who are trying to betray me. Because let's just say that the puppet master has many strings. And you think you've escaped. You shan't. Okay, X is a slasher movie that is written and directed by Ty West, and it stars a bunch of actors, but one of them is Mia Goth, who I love. She was in Suspiria, and she's one of those actors that has a very unusual face, and I love when an actor looks unique, and when you see them in movies, you're like, I love looking at their face on screen. Her thing is, she doesn't really have eyebrows. Like, she does, but they're like blonde, so when she's like really, really well lit, they just blend into her forehead. She's like our age, but you couldn't tell what age she is. She could be like 15 or like 50. She has this like really strange energy and disposition.
I heard of a really good Twitter recently called 13 or 30.
Yeah. Because sometimes you don't know.
Yeah. Like,
I'm always going to people like, guess how old I am, and they're always wrong.
Oh, I've never said that because I'm terrified. Brian, I'm very shallow.
No, I think it's because of the clothes I wear. They always say a number, and I'm like, and then I tell them my age, and they're like, oh, and I don't know if I don't know.
I think I asked my stream chat once, and it was good. I was like, oh, okay, no, you guys are way fucking off.
But Mia Goth's in Suspiria. She's not the main character in Suspiria. That's Dakota Johnson and or Tilda Swinton's plural, because that's that kind of film. But Mia Goth is one of the kills in the movie, but her like kill in Suspiria is amazing. It's the bit where like all the floorboards start vanishing around her because the witches are doing this weird chant, and she's just like getting eaten up by like hardwood material that just starts like evaporating. It's just like you know a bit in Jumanji where the floorboards turn to quicksand, and yes, you never want that to happen.
No.
But then you see it in another movie and you're like, well, now it's happened twice, so I don't feel good about floors anymore.
No.
I don't trust them.
You don't want to get stuck in the floorboards like Robin Williams.
No. That bit sucked. Except he could still spit out the dye with his mouth.
Yeah. But then he had the spider coming at him.
I think Jumanji's a really good film.
Jumanji's
Very
fucking
good.
awesome.
Yeah, I
Jumanji's
don't know. But okay, I have to talk about X, unfortunately. Okay, no, like X is fine. It's just it's a film about a group of people making a porno in the late 1970s, and it's a no budget porno. It's filmed.
What does like a porno do with budget?
VR.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
4K.
like people to like wipe people off and like squirt them.
So you think like a low budget porno gets very like slimy?
Yeah,
I'd say
gets really stinky.
I'd say high budget porno has like the AI learning where it knows your name and stuff, and so you can get real intimate with it. It's not good.
That feels so good, Ryan.
Bryan.
Bryan. It doesn't know Irish names. I wish Neve was here.
I was gonna say, Niam.
Niam. Neve, I'm
Do
sorry.
it again.
No, you know what, Neve? I'm not sorry. This is okay. The director Ty West, his signature style is that he always seems to do period films in that they're never set in present day. They're always a throwback to an era. He did this one movie like 10 years ago called House of the Devil, and it's just a very straightforward horror movie, but it legit looks like a John Carpenter movie from the turn of the 80s. And I respect and appreciate that, but the film doesn't do anything new with that.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's cool to see someone like recreate it one-to-one with the source material, but also keep it in the source.
Yeah, it's weird because it speaks to like a real love of film.
Yeah.
But it also results in things that I feel like don't hold a lot of value.
Yeah, and like this director Ty West, I do like him. He hosts a lot of panels, and he's always on DVD special features singing praises for other horror movies because he's a horror movie buff.
Yeah.
And you know the way sometimes you have directors where you actually prefer their personality to their films?
Kevin Smith.
Yeah, like,
As in, Kevin, the best shit Kevin Smith has ever done is the talks he's given.
yeah,
I love those.
Yeah, his podcasts are great. I watched Clerks 3 last week. That's not a good film.
Oh yeah,
Don't watch
he
that.
He has not made a good film in quite a while.
I think his only good film is Clerks.
Yeah.
My mom really likes Dogma for some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah,
There's a couple good bits in Clerks 2. I would not call Clerks 2 a good movie.
No. But yeah, so like Ty West is someone similar where like it's cool he's making a movie, I'll check it out. And so X is kind of like a run-of-the-mill slasher where it's a group of happy-go-lucky 20-year-olds making a porno out in the middle of nowhere, and they're filming in an old farmer's couple's like barn house or shed, I guess. And they're shooting it there, but they say to the owners that they're shooting like a art film. And they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. They're like, okay, but don't come in because we're going to be in character. We don't want to, like, disrupt the scene. And they're like, okay. And so in this film X, things lead from one thing to another. But the older woman, so it's an old couple, and the husband is called Howard, and the wife is called Pearl. And the husband, Howard, is kind of not 100% there, but he's friendly and accommodating. The wife, Pearl, is just completely gone. Like, she is no longer present in I think it's like 1979. Like her mind, it may as well be back in the 1920s, and she's kind of sexually frustrated, and she really wants to rekindle the romance with her husband. And it's this really sad story about a married couple, a very elderly married couple, where the husband is like, my heart will blow up if we have sex.
Oh.
And the wife is like, please, I'm so lonely.
Oh no, that's so sad.
And so they're making the porno, and she's out the window, and she catches a glimpse of the porno, and she's like, huh. And through a series of events, because it's a horror movie, the old lady is killing people off.
Okay.
But the husband is complicit in it because he loves his wife. She's not herself anymore. She's done nothing wrong. She's a good lady at heart, but she's killing people.
Hey, look, love's complicated.
Yeah, and it's very much a straightforward slasher movie. You've got your kills, and you've got your big kind of climax, and you got your ending. Mia Goth is one of the primary characters that they're shooting the porno with, and Mia Goth is very familiar with being in mainstream movies and more art films. Mia Goth is also the old lady Pearl in really, really convincing makeup.
Oh.
So she plays two
Wow.
roles, and there's a bunch of scenes near the end where she's being chased by the old lady, and the body doubles and the cuts that they do in between are really, really convincing. Like, it wasn't until after the movie that I was like, hang on, that was the same person playing both roles? That's amazing, because, like, they really overlap with each other. And so that film came out. I think they filmed it in New Zealand during lockdown, because I think if you got filming permission to do it in Australia or New Zealand where there were no COVID cases, you go there, you do your bubble for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you can shoot all you want, and you're not going to catch COVID because there's no COVID. The country's shut down anyway. You can only go in for special reasons, and one of the special reasons was making a film.
Yeah.
And so off the back of that, they were having so much fun making X that they actually decided to shoot another film.
Wow.
So the Mia Goth got on super well with Ty West, and they wrote a script in like a day, and it's a prequel called
Really?
Pearl. And if X is a throwback to late 1970s slasher films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Halloween, with all the dust scratches and editing choices and lighting, Pearl is a throwback to the golden age of cinema where Technicolor first came in, so everything is overly saturated and all the sets look really two-dimensional. Like, think about like the opening of The Wizard of Oz.
Right,
Yeah.
right, okay.
And it's Pearl, who is a creepy old lady in the original film, but this is 60 years earlier. I think it's in like 1910. And she's not doing well even as a young adult woman. She has a husband, but her husband has gone off to World War One. At the same time, the Spanish flu has just begun, and everyone is wearing masks around town.
That's crazy. Oh my god.
And you have to be very careful about who you talk to. And in her case, it's her mother, and her parents. I think they're German immigrants. So her mother is German, but then Pearl sees herself as an all-American girl who wants to be a star in the pictures. And then her dad.
Wait, who doesn't want to be a star in the pictures?
Yeah. And then her dad has recently had a stroke, and so she's kind of realizing that like her life isn't going to be what she hoped it would be, and she kind of lives in a daydream fantasy world. Like, I need to stress that she's not 100% there.
Yeah.
But she looks really, really sympathetic, and it's just the way Mia Goth looks. Like, you are like rooting for her, and like, so you're watching a movie where you're watching the killer kill people, and you're kind of like, oh, she's all right, but like, she's the bad guy, but she's the protagonist of the movie. And I'm watching this Rebecca, and I'm like, I'm kind of rooting for her, and she's like, oh, I am, because she's cool. Like, she's great in this film. But yeah, she's not a good person. And like, there's one bit where the local church is gonna have a Bible tour, and they're getting a local girl from every town in the county. They're doing open auditions, and whichever girls are picked get to tour the whole belt. And God, there's a bit where she makes out with a scarecrow and does way worse things. This woman ain't good.
I always think of that bit from Cabin in the Woods where the girl makes out with the weird fake wolf.
Yeah.
That bit goes on for way too long.
I don't know.
John.
What? I didn't. What? Yeah. So Pearl sounds like a good movie.
Yeah. So there's a bit where she does her audition, and it goes into a full-on Judy Garland musical for that bit, and you're like, oh, we're inside her mind right now.
Oh.
And then it cuts back to the reality, and you're like, yeah, you're not looking what we're looking for. We're looking for a blonde. And she's like, oh. And then she just starts crying, and like, so there's bits where she's like,
So Pearl is a horror movie too?
oh yeah.
Okay.
But like, it's done in the style of Wizard of Oz or Gone with the Wind, which are both directed by the same director. Like, it really feels like Golden Age Hollywood. And it's set in 1919, but it more evokes the style of like the 1940s or the late 1930s.
Right.
And it uses World War One as a backdrop, even though technically that would have been World War Two as a backdrop.
Oh, weird. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess because time is in the past, everything is the same apparently. Sure.
Time's a flat circle.
Yeah, that's it exactly. But yeah, and like, her husband is not there. She doesn't have an anchor. But like, do you know how, okay, like, the final shot of this movie is the one that just fucking won me over. Because you know how we were talking about that last shot in Funny Pages? Mm-hmm. Where you pointed it out and you were like, what they're doing, Brian, is they have like 10 seconds of footage and they're just playing it backwards and forwards at like 95% speed.
Yeah.
So you don't really notice the like ease in and ease out of the main guy. They do something similar with this, but it's all the one take because she's doing this weird face, but she starts getting a gag reflex halfway through and she's crying.
So, you know what I really love? Facial horror.
Yeah.
Blood on the Tracks
Oh, yeah.
is that. Like, there's so many fucked up faces in Blood on the Tracks.
Yeah, no, and like I do recommend both films. Like, do watch X, and there's stuff in there that you can appreciate. But like Pearl that's a humdinger.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
That's a
Okay,
very
okay, yep.
But like the two films complement each other, and there's going to be stuff in Pearl that you'll enjoy more because you'll recognize because the film was very smartly made because it's the exact same farmhouse and barn. But it's filmed in a completely different style.
The fact that it resulted from them having a good time really makes me want to watch it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, like I love hearing like success stories about film productions where like it wasn't a nightmare to work on, and everyone had a blast. I'm like,
a very vibes based production.
Yeah.
And with all the touring, it's been the director Ty and Mia, and they're answering all the questions. So I think they're going to collaborate more.
Cool.
I'm cool with that.
That's awesome. Guys, I read Masters of Doom.
Tell us about that.
So, okay. This is an interesting book because it's a really fascinating story. It's the story of John Romero and John Carmack and how they made Doom and ID Software and eventually Quake. And like as a like piece of like the history of video games, it's fascinating. So, you know, one thing that was a huge deal about Mario Land, like Mario Land 1,
Yeah.
the fact that it could scroll.
Yeah. Because before it would be you run and then you'd hit the like end of the screen and it would have to like
enter
load.
it would
next.
draw the new screen.
Yeah, because didn't they make Commander Keen as a response to that?
Not so much a response as them just trying shit.
But that was their kind of original IP on a platformer.
Yeah. And so like that's where video games were. The screen couldn't even scroll when they came into it. And so then they like, you know, going from that to them creating Doom is insane. And it's a really interesting account of like all that kind of stuff. And the book is written by David Kushner, who is notable because he's like wrote a lot of like books about bands and stuff like that. I think if there was one thing I didn't like about this book, it's that it really tries very hard to frame John Romero and John Carmack as like rock stars.
Yeah.
And I understand it to a point, but it just doesn't work for me. Like, it's just like...
Well, especially because John Carmack is like the biggest nerd ever.
Oh,
like, because Romero did try to lean on the rock star image. This book has been on my reading list for ages. I've just never gotten to it, so I'm relatively familiar.
Yeah.
But Romero has always kind of been like Rockstar Gaming, and we're gonna make game development like that same field where it's like, oh, the best directors are gonna be treated like that same echelon of celebrity. Meanwhile, John Carmack's just like, I just like programming. They went to that now they're just like making programs for NASA, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
like they're just making calculators or something. Like they're just still plugging away at that. That side of things.
It's interesting hearing you like say that kind of like discrepancy between the two, because like I think like the thing I ended up really, really enjoying about this book is like it ends up really not being about kind of, I mean, it is about like the development of Doom and Quake and all that kind of stuff and just how much that changed the video game industry, but at the heart of it, what it ends up being about is this friendship that stops working.
Yeah.
Because like John Carmack and John Romero both meet each other and they both immediately recognize in each other like, oh, there is something here that is not in other people. We both love video games so much, you know what I mean? Like this is our whole fucking life. But then after a while it's like, well, John Carmack doesn't love video games. He loves programming.
Yeah.
John Romero loves video games.
Yeah.
And that division actually is what splits them apart. And that part of the story got me. I was like, oh, you know, I think I'm a real sucker for stories about like the long-term dissolution of a friendship, and this is that. And that part of it I think is really, really good. And I just want to note as well, there's one like weirdly transphobic line in the book. And it's a single line, and it's just like, whoa, what the fuck?
Is it something coming from the writer themselves, or is it something coming
It's
from
absolutely
Romero
a case
or...
of phrasing as opposed to like any belief, any character. Like just to be clear, I don't know anything about John Carmack. John Romero, very cool person. Like literally appeared on my stream for raising money for LGBTQ charity.
That's right.
He seems very on the level.
Yeah,
you know,
I do
so like
remember that.
absolutely not a reflection on him. There's just what I see as like, I think this book was wrote like not that recently, and I think
it's been out for ages. I want to say like mid 2010s.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Older.
And it's like, I think it was on the last cusp where it was kind of seen as kosher to say shit like this.
Yeah,
this is not. Look, and like the only reason I mention it is just because like I don't want any of our like I know that's why the boss has a lot of trans listeners. I don't want people to stumble into this and just read. Like, and it is literally one line, but it stuck out to me enough where I was like, fucking here, come on, you know?
Yeah, you hear it and you go...
That, I think I was literally like, I was falling asleep reading it and I read that and I was like... But like, it's also... It is a really kind of sad story of like, oh shit, these two... It's like they recognized something in each other that was so special, and then they kind of grew apart, and it was cool, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd read it. I still think some of the writing is kind of obnoxious, some of the kind of prose, and honestly, I think some of the writing's a little not great. I don't know a whole lot about David Kushner, but he's very well regarded in writing circles. I didn't love the writing of this book, but the overall story of it I did.
Yeah.
Fox, you watched Derry Girls season 3.
Yeah, so I started watching Derry Girls actually back when I think it was Neve recommended it on the podcast.
Oh yeah,
telling everyone about Derry Girls. I was like, I'll check this out. I don't know much about Irish culture of the time, but I'll give this a watch, and I really clicked with it. It's a very interesting sitcom about a group of girls and one guy who's a cousin of one of the girls,
who's
living
English and
who's
gets
English,
treated appropriately.
living in 1990s Ireland during the Troubles.
So basically, like, nearly the exact time we grew up, Brian.
Yeah.
They're probably a bit older than us.
No, yeah, they'd be about, like, they'd be more clued in, and I guess because they're on the border as well.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, because I grew up down in Cork, down the south, and I was 5 years. I'm probably like 5 years younger than where. Like, I'd say they're born in the first half of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they're teens in the mid to late 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're Derry, the namesake is on the border, so there's you see a lot of the tension. But it's really interesting because the whole concept is that's really much a backdrop, but it's much more about like the coming of age of these like high school age girls. But every once in a while you get that like harsh reminder that's like, oh yeah, like it wasn't great living in this time frame.
Yeah.
So I was waiting on season 3 for about, what was it, 2 years?
3 years,
it had
I
been
think.
development, maybe 3. Yeah,
I think
3?
season 1 was 2018, season 2 was 2019, and then they had started doing table reads in 2020 and then postponed it.
Yeah, and partially I think because of like COVID restrictions and whatnot. But season 3 is, to my understanding, the end, and it feels like the ending feels very final and like this. We told our story, and I was pretty much in tears by the end because you just see that you're just kind of on an emotional ride because the whole backdrop of the Troubles really comes rearing in at the end, where the conclusion of the series ends on like them deciding on the vote for the Good Friday Agreement. Is that what
ceasefire?
It is? Yeah, the ceasefire. Mm-hmm. And there's like a whole like discussion on like, should we let out IRA soldiers who were like bomb people and innocent people at that. And it creates a whole drama because one of the girls' brothers was one of those soldiers. And there's this really interesting like discussion about like, is this okay? And a really emotional discussion with the main girl and her granddad about, I don't know if I'm okay with that. Like, I don't know if I should vote yes, vote no. And he has this really poignant moment about like, but what if it does solve things? But what if this is the end and this is just something you tell your grandkids that happened years ago? and it's just a really sweet show that you get to get this like kind of more or less happy note because you kind of saw the journey that these girls went on. It's just a really sweet comedy.
Yeah, it's
and you
great.
get to learn a little
It's
bit
so
about
good.
Irish culture at the time. Like I was watching, and for the while after I watched season 1, I just kept saying Waynes because it's just that like how they like the Waynes are at it again. I'm just like, that just stuck in my head.
Or like
So-
the one where I think it's in season 3. They're on the train to go out for the day, but one of them misses the train, so she has to wait for the next train. And she just does this really good scream to the camera, and I've seen my sisters do that scream.
Yeah, and
It's a
that
very
bit,
specific
and that,
scream.
That subplot is great. She doesn't get as much to do in season 3. I love Sister Michael.
Oh yeah, she's brilliant.
She
Oh,
is the
she's so
standout
good.
person. She's the standout actor.
I
in
love
most
Sister
scenes.
Michael. I love the boring guy.
Oh, he's great too. The interplay they have, just Sister Michael's like just I don't give a shit attitude at all.
She's basically like this nun who just does not give a fuck about anything.
Yeah.
And like but like it's one of those characters where like that character lives or dies on the talent of that actor.
Yes.
And just the stone-faced fuck you attitude of that actor. It's brilliant.
Because it's absolutely deadpan, and like she says exactly what's on her mind.
Yeah.
To the point other people are like almost like shocked by it, and then she
Yeah.
just keeps going about her day.
Yeah.
Like that's what's so great about
Being
her.
known as a very minor part of her aesthetic.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's more just a decision she made as opposed to like a calling she had.
There's
she
a
probably
lot
just
of,
didn't want to marry anyone.
there's a great visual gag that I'm gonna spoil, which is I think it's near the end of season 3 where she is like she's like sitting down and it looks like she's praying, and it looks like she has like a big revelation. She's like like her mind is blown, and you think for a second she's had like an emotional breakthrough because you from the shot angle it looks like she's looking at like an image of Jesus Christ, and then the camera pans slightly and you see she's watching a game of football.
Yeah.
And she's like, goal. It's just like such a great, like, she does not give a shit about the religion of it. It's just this is her day job.
There's a really funny bit I think in season 1 where one of the girls tries to appeal to her, and she's like, well, you know, sister, I had a vision from the Holy Mother. And she kind of just is silent for a second, and then she's like, you really want to cop on, wouldn't you?
But yeah, highly recommend Derry Girls. It's all on Netflix.
It's brilliant. Yes,
yeah,
you do not need to know anything about Irish history to enjoy it.
Yeah, and you can bang it out in a day because it's the standard Irish UK format where seasons are only about like
Whoa, I'm sorry. The standard Irish UK format.
Irish/UK.
Okay, that's not what you said.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll Oni put that in there.
No, don't.
only leave that in there. Leave that in there.
It's a border between Canada and America.
You know, the Irish
Yeah.
people have been through a lot.
Have they though?
Yeah, they have.
I didn't get that from Derry Girls.
No.
Sounds like you
Yeah.
didn't.
I thought they were kind of making a bigger
Sounds
deal.
like you completely missed the entire fucking point of that show.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I just was there for the funny voices more than anything else.
Brian cut his mic.
Oh, I cut that shit out. I just felt bad.
During the intro, after the Neve, I just saw him like kind of silent, like hit a button, and then my like audio track just like deadlined.
Oh, yeah.
It's for the best.
Yeah.
Strategy talk. Guys, I played a little game called Beacon Pines.
What's this?
So Beacon Pines is a kind of...
Sounds indie.
It is.
Yeah, it's got pines in it.
Yeah. So it's like a kind of semi-visual novel game, but with like little screens that you can navigate. As in, like, you know, you have your little character and you can run around and check different things. And it is basically this game about you're this little deer called Luca,
Okay.
and you live in this village, and shit ain't right.
Is it like, are you like an anthropomorphic deer?
Very.
Okay, so it's like, obviously it's not at the same level as an Animal Crossing, but it is evoking, like, is it like Chicory, that kind of...
So what I would say is the artwork in this game is absolutely fucking beautiful.
Okay.
It's like some of the highest level illustration I've seen in a visual novel game. Really, really stunning character designs. Pretty furry, if that's gonna bother you. But I found most of the designs very tasteful in that regard. There's a bat called Dawn, and she's great. And she's very sleepy in the day, but very helpful at night.
I get it.
Yep.
Can I ask you, just because the title immediately makes me think of it, how much is this related to Twin Peaks at all?
No, it doesn't feel like that.
Just something about that name makes me think
I totally get that.
Yeah, it really sounds like Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. But no, there's nothing about the game so far that makes me think Twin Peaks, other than the fact that it's set in a kind of rural, Rust Belty town that has kind of... It's
off.
Yeah, it was more... Not even off. It was more like successful
but
a couple of years ago.
Now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the whole thing about this game is like there's this weird contrast where like a lot of the game is very storybookish. But then like a character will be like, shit. And you're like, what the fuck? You know? But then you get to points in the story where it's like kind of fucked up things happen. And it's like, oh, I didn't really see things going this direction. Very kind of strange. There's one point where like you find a puddle and you put a branch in the puddle and all of a sudden flowers like sprout out of the branch. And you're like, oh, weird. Then a character falls in the puddle and it's bad. And it's kind of like, there's points of the game that become mildly horror. Like, it's difficult for me to tell like how fucked up things get because I'm maybe 2 hours into the game. But I guess what I would say is like the artwork is beautiful. There's one voice actor who's like the narrator, who's narrating everything.
That's a lot of work.
They're amazing. They're such a good voice actor. Like they're really able to change their inflection for all the different characters and all this kind of stuff. And it's like it's someone telling you a story. And the writing is really good. Really, really good so far. Like the dialogue's really convincing. Every character has a voice and like the prose are good as well. The kind of whole gimmick of the game is that you have like basically you find like I think they call them charms. So you'll encounter a situation where it's like the bully of the town corners you. What do you want to do? And you can be like fight, run, chill. And then like, you know, you'll pick your one and the story will progress into this like branching path story kind of thing. But then further down like the path of your story, you might find another one and it might say shit. And so then like you can go back to that instance with the bully and pick shit and it'll create another branch.
Oh, so you're like collecting keywords?
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you can go back and
So
That's great.
Is it like a kind of almost like non-linear story where you are
retroactively
where
change
you're looking
things.
at like the key, or you're looking at your like flow chart of story and you're going down the flow chart to get keywords and then bringing them back
That's
to
exactly what it is.
Interesting.
Yeah, and like what I appreciate it as well is like when you're on the flowchart map, it'll show you what words you've used and what you haven't. So like, thank you for eliminating that trial and error. It's an infinitely charming game. I really have an aversion to anything like twee or saccharine. But something about this game, it's like, it is that, but it's not really bothering me. I think because the writing is so good. And like, when I say the writing is so good, I don't mean that the story is like amazing. I just mean that like the little pieces of writing that like make up conversations or like link events, they're just very convincing. Like there's this one guy in town and he's kind of just this boring fucker. You know, and it's like whenever you have to deal with them, it is like, oh god. But then like the characters in the game are like, oh, not this guy, and like it's convincing. You know, I think this is the kind of game I'm going to come back next episode and tell everyone how I like, you know, how it goes. To me, I really want it to lean into the kind of horror side of it because I think that duality would be super interesting. I don't know that's what it's going to do, but like, I mean, it's on Game Pass. If you have like an Xbox, it really is worth taking a look at, especially if you're just even a little bit partial to like visual novels or whatever. But I'm enjoying it. Beacon Pines, check it out.
I'll definitely check that out. Yeah.
And like, again, beautiful artwork. Like, holy shit.
But has the potential to be chilling.
Yep.
Maybe.
Guys, I feel like you two need to just... We need to go down the Bayonetta hole.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're in that crevice.
So, do we start this by, like, talking about the conclusion of the Helena Taylor saga?
No, I just want to talk about the game.
Okay, fair.
I think like the last time we talked about Helena Taylor on this podcast, we kind of gave her a lot of goodwill.
That's true.
I think
Well, she was very good as Bayonetta in Bayonetta 1 and 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
like look, I'm not like I would never like fault her performance, but I think she's kind of in several different ways she kind of squandered it, and like I don't want I don't want people to like go out and harass her. Like,
No.
she's a woman who disparaged a video game on the internet. She's gonna get hers, unfortunately, but like doesn't seem like a great person.
No, and that's why I want to bring it up, because originally when she made her first comments, I was like, something feels off. But even then, like, even giving like Platinum the benefit of the doubt before we got more of the story, I was like, this is just such a bummer. This just makes me feel not great about Bayonetta 3 even before I've played it, and it just felt kind of dour, and it put a big like rain cloud over the game initially.
So you weren't enthusiastic about
So
it
I
anymore.
really like killed a lot of my enthusiasm going in. But as the story developed, I was like, okay, like I'll definitely get it now, but it just still kind of gives it a little bit of a sour kick at the end, where I'm just like, man, like it had to have this whole controversy like right before it came out. I only bring up the like conclusion because I think last time it was talked about on the podcast, there was the development of Jason Schreier and a bunch of other game journalists discovered, okay, well, that was a lot of half-truths, what Helena Taylor said. Like, she was actually offered much more, and the 4,000 that she was quoting was like for a cameo appearance that Platinum was like for goodwill. And then a few days later, she comes out and is basically saying, oh, there's a bunch of lies being spouted from the gaming elite. She really tries to present like people like Jason Schreier as part of the games industry.
She went full on like gamer conspiracy theorist, which was really
really weird, because she then confirms everything they said.
Yeah.
Like, that was the most bizarre thing, is you think she would like refute everything, but she goes, oh, there's a bunch of lies being said. Anyway, yes, everything they said was effectively true. Yes, I was originally offered 10,000 when I talked to Camille. It was add an extra 5,000 on it, and I still declined because this game makes $400 million before,
which I think maybe only could it, but might have been something I said last podcast, which in hindsight, like, wait, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
I don't know that adds up.
The best-selling Bayonetta game is probably Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Yeah.
Unquestionably, right?
And that's just dialogue reuse.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have her in because they didn't have David Hayter back in for Snake. They didn't have Taylor back in for Bayonetta. They just went through the sound bank.
And just like tossed it into her character, because they didn't need anything super detailed.
No.
But to quickly wrap this up, because I don't want it to be focused on Helena Taylor. After that, and everybody was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, she is full of shit," because she confirmed it herself. I think the day of the game releasing, she took her one last like salvo throw to go, you should still donate to charities anyway. Here's a list of charities you should donate. Yeah, with the boycott. And it was found out that one of those charities is a Kentucky anti-abortion
Billboard
fund.
company or something?
Billboard company. So it's like, yeah, you like burnt any and all goodwill.
Also kind of been
anyone
involved
had.
with like not like, she's liked Blue Lives Matter tweets. She's, I think, follows people who are very vocally anti-trans, and there's like a case where someone asked her, would Bayonetta say trans rights, and she gave this just fucking real J.K. Rowling fucking answer.
I support all people, I think everybody should be respected.
Just a big fan of life. Like, I shouldn't say that, but
you're being weirdly like dodgy about this very simple request. But anyway,
I do feel. Final word on that whole fucking thing. I do feel like a bit weird about it, because I do feel like the internet disproportionately attacks middle-aged women. It just does.
Yeah, and it's definitely from like the outcome of the whole Karen meme and things like that.
And that's happening here, but it's like, I don't want to defend Mary Taylor but at the same time, I guess I just feel like...
Who's Mary Taylor?
Sorry, I'm
Helena
bad.
Taylor.
Helena Taylor, but I poured way too much whiskey at the start of this podcast.
Don't worry.
I guess, like, all I'm saying is, like, I think Helena Taylor seems like she fucking sucks, but at the same time, it's like, I know it's another case where, like, the internet's going to dogpile a middle-aged woman, and it's like, but yeah.
But anyway, so after all that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give Bayonetta 3 another shot, especially because I was seeing good reviews going into it. So
Yeah,
I
it
was like,
got good reviews.
I was like, okay, I'll definitely pick this up because I love Bayonetta.
I mean, there's so much to love about Bayonetta.
So how far are you into it? I'm only a couple chapters in.
So for anyone listening who's played further into this game, because I've been on vacation, so I've only been sporadically able to get into it. I'm on the second Jean side chapter is the most recent thing I've unlocked. So I'm like, I think I want to say I'm like 7 chapters in.
Okay, I'm only on like chapter... I did the prologue, I know that.
Yeah.
I think I'm on like chapter 4 or 5.
Yeah. Because you have not gone to Viola yet, right?
No, I'm still playing as Bayonetta.
Okay, yeah. So
Because that's not a spoiler, because that was in the trailer footage that you could also play as this new character called Viola. And she... Okay. Like, the first Bayonetta is about her going up to heaven to figure out who she is, and she fights angels.
yeah.
Bayonetta 2 is her rescuing Jean, and she goes down to the depths of hell fighting demons. Bayonetta 3 is her trying to figure out who Viola is and what this new character needs her help with. And
there's a whole like multiverse angle because the multiverse is collapsing in on itself.
Yeah, and so this time around it takes place on planet Earth, but it's a multiverse version of planet Earth. And what you're fighting is the
homunculi.
Yeah, and so they're just these weird humanoid alien-looking things. And I know the multiverse is very much pop culture right now, so it makes sense.
I like the first thing I'll say about that is I really like the framing, I guess, of the new villains, because one thing I've always loved about Bayonetta is anytime they introduce a new monster, there's always that like book that like shows up and they'll give it like a very
the
specific
tome with
name.
the description.
Yeah, and they'll give it like a title, and then there'll be like a subtitle like Patriarch of Sloth or something like that. Something like very like evocative, and it's like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. And I like the theming they've went with the homunculi because from what I'm understanding so far, they're man-made.
Yeah.
They have very militaristic titles like Light Range Defensive Unit, and then the like title of the monster, so you really get the sense it's like, oh, these are made for military use.
Yeah, there's bits of this game where I'm like, oh, this is made by the people who made Nier Automata. After Nier Automata, there's bits where you go around ruined cities, John, and they kind of look like the ruined city from Nier Automata. There's a bit where I went through a sewer and it looked like one of the sewers from Nier Automata.
Yeah, this is like that, and also the people that were on Astral Chain. You can definitely tell that they had their fingers on this one,
so,
for better and for worse.
Yeah, and so the main gimmick of this game is, okay, it's still a character action game where you play as Bayonetta, but her new attack repertoire is that she has a kaiju summon, and she dances in the foreground while you control the monster in the background.
That's awesome.
While also keeping an eye on Bayonetta to make sure you dodge, because she's busy doing her dance summon.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like Astral Chain in that way, or a bit like V in DMC5.
Right.
Yeah.
Weird.
And, they even tie that into just like the main combos, because a lot of your finishers are the demon summons if you can time it right. Because if you do your dial combos, or you go like punch,
and
kick,
the fifth
punch.
button is always like the large limbs come out, but now it's the large limbs of the demon, and you've got 3 demon slots, because you might wear a demon out and you need to recharge. And there's occasions where you're in a pool where you just have like an infinity meter with the demon, so for that bit, like the game is really encouraging you to use the demons.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And the like even the like boss fights and the enemy designs will kind of try to like push you in that direction where an enemy will like build a shield around themselves like a bubble, and it's like you are gonna have to bring out the kaiju to like punch them. Like you like your first one is Madama Butterfly, which is like her personal demon contract, and then you also get Gendora, I think is the
Gamora,
the big,
something like that.
something like that, which is like the big demon monster you see at the start of 2 that like kills Jean the first time, and then from there you get like more. The next one you get is
The spider.
It's not Phantom, but it's something like Phantom, and it's very clear. It's like, okay, well, this is the iconic one from this game that's homaging Phantom from DMC1.
That's so cool.
And I liked
Phantom
a little.
was so cool.
It's such a little
Yeah.
nod to DMC1 that I appreciated is when they bring in the spider. They very clearly are referencing the first encounter that Dante has with it, where he walks up and he like knocks them like on the head, and it's like, oh yeah, stupid idiot. And it's a little thing most people probably won't pick up on if you've never played DMC1. Even in the background music of that scene, they kind of like add in the theme that is from that game.
Cool.
It's such a little thing that I was like, okay, I know I'm like clapping because I get it, but you know, I appreciate the little nod there.
Yeah.
I'm so far really liking this game so far. I have some like minor gripes, but I'm like, this is good.
The cutscenes are making me laugh a lot. Like in the first introduction cutscene with Bayonetta, she has 3 outfit changes.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
It's nice seeing her in like casual clothes. Because
Yeah.
the first time you see her, she's wearing like a knit sweater and jeans.
Yeah, and she's walking out of like.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
And so she's in New York City. Like you know, the opening of Bayonetta 2 is her and Jean and the Christmas shopping.
It's amazing.
And so this is even like more low key, where it's like her walking out of a bakery with 2 fancy baguettes, but then she's eating a sushi, but she just like scoops it from the palm of her hand into her mouth, and like. This game may as well be from 2009.
Yeah.
Like there's like I was saying to both of you, but like this has more in common with Deadly Premonition 2 than it does with Devil May Cry 5.
So
Yeah.
I'm hoping, Brian, that maybe you didn't experience just how broken Deadly Premonition 2 was.
Cuz like this is a Switch game, but it's a developer making a game for a Switch
And
system.
because a lot of people are putting it on the Switch hardware, and it's like, even then I feel like some of it's on Platinum themselves, because even cutscenes, like people will be like talking, and the lip dialogue is not in sync, and they've made this
and
for
it's got
English.
that really awkward motion capture acting that hasn't changed in the better part of 15 years.
Yeah.
Like it does feel like you're playing a 360 or PS3 game, but there's a charm to that, because I know for both of us, John, it was 4th year college, and you were like, Brian, you got to try this game, because it came out in December 2009.
Yeah.
Like 2 decades ago, essentially.
Oh, fuck me, Jesus.
If you think about it. And so we both, I played and I was like, what the fuck is this game?
Yeah.
And like, it's so weird. Like you start it up and it has a Sega logo, it has the Nintendo logo, and it's like, imagine showing this to someone in the 90s. Like their brain would just melt.
And I love in that intro cutscene, they're just shy of having Enzo go full on, love the Mets, baby, all about the Mets. Because he's introduced in full New York indistinct baseball team attire and talking about, oh, I was supposed to go to the opening game today and I gotta do all your chores, and he's like working on his car, and then like a baseball comes like flying at him and Bayonetta catches it, and he's like, yeah, well, too bad, you're my like little slave boy today. And it's just like, I love that they still go out of their way to constantly bring Enzo in at the start of the game just
he's
to
very
be
important.
just to be the whipping boy, because he never does anything important. He's just there to like be screaming as like shit's happening and Bayonetta's being cool, and like the new enemies come in attacking her and they do the it's hard to say, like, or it's like it almost feels like it's too reliant on like, oh well, past games did this so we have to do that, but they
like,
do the she's wearing she fashions a dress about that she finds on this yacht party, and she just like makes a nice like fancy fashionable
It's a really
dress.
good outfit.
It's a really good outfit, and then she gets in a fight and it gets like torn up, and then she transforms into her like actual attire.
How are you guys feeling about the new look for Bayonetta?
I like it.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of the visuals, I'll accept it. The basic battle music is very forgettable. It's not as good as You're a Mystery or the what's the
Your World Tomorrow's Mine.
Yeah, Tomorrow's Mine. I love Tomorrow's Mine.
The second one is my favorite.
But the like baseline battle music track isn't as memorable. And as well, the cutscenes are in 30 frames per second, and it does that transition where it goes from like, it cuts out to a wide shot, and she's like, well, boys, let's fight, or whatever, and it's clearly going into the the in-game engine, and all of a sudden it like ramps into 60 frames per second, and it really throws you off.
You can always tell.
Yeah.
It's a real product of its time, even though it's just come out.
Yeah. The other thing with going into like the combat stuff, one thing I remember being apprehensive about when I heard about it was they were getting rid of the fact that you could set a weapons to appendages.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, so for anyone who hasn't like played the games, the very distinct thing about Bayonetta like 1 and 2 is that you could set a pair of weapons to Bayo's hands.
You could
and
put
to her
shotguns
legs.
on your feet.
Yeah, or you could put swords to her feet.
Or chainsaw feet.
That would decide what her moveset was, and some weapons were for only her hands and only her legs. So you could have ultimately like a roster of 4 different weapons, because you could switch between 2 loadouts. And you can still switch between 2 loadouts now, but it's just the 1 weapon on that. So basically you only ever have 2 weapon on you at any given time. And if you need to switch to another one, you have to basically go into the menu, swap out one, and then go back in.
Man, I'll never forget how good it was, like, hitting kick, and then, like, she kicks someone, but then you hold it for a second, and then just a shotgun blast.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
I think they've made that change. This is my best guess. I think they made that change to really let every weapon be more fleshed out in design. Because now every weapon has a... This is always true, but they have, like, the assigned kaiju summon. And also, when you do the double tap on
the dash.
right trigger to do the dash, and in the old games you turn into a panther and you just go into a sprint. In this one, you have a transformation assigned to that weapon. So with the phantoms, you turn into a spider lady, and you just like skitter around. And when you jump and hit jump again, you go into like a Spider-Man swing. And there's another weapon that's a big club/sniper rifle that when you do that transformation, you turn into this big
like gargoyle kind of thing.
kind of gargoyle thing that's like running on all fours.
But also it has like a jet propulsion that needs to charge up, and then has a really good horizontal dash.
Yeah, so if you're
And-
jumping, you can like charge in and go.
But like this is like for me, this is a weapon I would never use, but I am, because it has interesting dynamics.
Yes. So I think they kind of balanced that out more or less. I'll kind of see how I feel about it by the end. But I was like, okay, I think I kind of get why they made that change. Overall, I'm liking
that
the
makes
gameplay.
sense.
But yeah, like this is a game made by the developers whose more recent games are Nier Automata and Astral Chain, and not Bayonetta 2 or the cancelled Scalebound.
Right.
One complaint I will say about the kaiju thing is I like the kaijus in the combat, but every once in a while there will be a boss fight where it's like, okay, you are just the kaiju and you're controlling them, and you got to fight another monster, and it's very slow, it's very clumsy because they're a Godzilla thing, and you go like, okay, attack, and there's like a big long wind up, and then they hit. And it's slow and clumsy is not what I'm coming to Bayonetta for. That is the exact
that makes a lot of
opposite.
sense.
Yeah.
So there's that, and it's just like, I don't know if you... I get the spectacle of it, but it also has the problem of these games are all about replayability. And when you have these like slow, lumbering things you have to do to go through a replay, it's like...
Feels tedious.
It feels very much tedious because it's like, okay, on your first time, and then every other time it's like,
Sure.
okay, I just want to get rid of this. I will say, since we talked about it last, I actually have gone to play Viola.
Yeah. So what's
I
she
got
like?
a lot to say about Viola. Firstly, where you're saying Bayonetta's music is kind of like, it's not really memorable. Hers immediately stands out. The first time you run into her doing combat while you're playing Bayonetta, they kick in her theme, and it is very early 2000s girl pop punk.
Brilliant.
And it's like very Mom, It's Not a Phase kind of music.
Avril Lavigne music.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I think some of the stuff you were saying to me about like her dynamic with Bayonetta sounded super interesting.
Because she's only like 18 years old, whereas Bayonetta is like 5,000 years old?
Yeah, you get the very... Because in series like this, you have the trouble of like, okay, we have these very iconic character, and we want to introduce a new playable character. How do we make them distinct? And with Viola, their solution is, okay, well, Bayonetta is so effortlessly cool, always strong and in demand. What if her like contrast is a teenage girl who thinks they're cool, but then tries to do a kick flip on the skateboard and falls over and hits her face.
Oh dear.
So that's her whole thing, is she tries to be cool,
But she botches it.
but she botches it every time, and that's really charming. I love that. Like the first time you
but then
see
in the
her
gameplay,
action,
does she have combos?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
she has a similar combat to Bayonetta in this game, but they distinctify it by being about charge attacks. So she can hold her attacks and then like do it for a harder hit. And she doesn't have multiple summons as far as I've gotten, but her summon is Cheshire, the big messed up cat.
So John, there's this new supporting character, and it's just My Neighbor Totoro meets the Cheshire Cat, and he spits out a penny farthing bicycle and flies around the place on it.
That sounds amazing.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, you know what? They got some fucking ideas.
Yeah.
like that well ain't empty.
Okay,
This
good,
is good.
I don't know, like, I feel like I was talking to you two recently, and you were both maybe a bit more lukewarm on the game than you are now.
Yeah, I think it's just like I kind of had to settle into it and accept some of the changes. I know going further in, the kaiju fights are going to get more exhausting, because that's all I heard from people that finished the game is like, I'm so tired with the kaiju stuff.
So
And
they
the
really,
boss
really
fights,
push it.
the boss fights do have the problem where you're more building meter for the kaiju summons than you are actually engaging in the combat, which is like,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, that's not great. But in the moment-to-moment gameplay, I'm really liking Bayonetta. I'm really liking Viola, because it is a big task to go, okay, there's another playable character with Bayonetta. The obvious comparison is Nero, like introducing Nero. And Nero was kind of hit or miss in the fourth game until they figured out like exactly what to do with them. I think they kind of nailed Viola on like Go 1, because they knew exactly how to contrast her and give her her own like unique tool set.
So my thoughts on Nero. Mid.
Yeah. The for the audience, he's giving a big shrug.
Yeah, he's shrugging a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you'll really like Viola,
Okay.
because like that's the thing with Nero, is Nero's like kind of that, but like they don't go far enough. They kind of still try to make him like really cool.
So
Viola,
is
there's
Nero
very
a playable
little.
character?
In DMC?
Oh, sorry, I thought you guys were still talking about Bayonetta.
Yeah. No, I was just saying with Viola, they like really nail that in their first go.
You know, that the fact that it's the younger character who's plucky and has that weird different build.
Yeah.
Nero is my favorite character I've ever played.
Really?
In DMC 5.
In DMC5 specifically.
Yeah.
And oh my god, but like his gameplay with the fucking hands and the wrestling moves and the grappling, it's so good. Like, look, if I can't end a fucking like sword combo with a suplex, there's a part of me asking like, what are we even
What
doing?
are we doing?
Yeah, but John V.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, TV's cool.
He's got the whole gang.
One last thing I'll say about Bayonetta 3, because I've only gotten so far into it, so it's hard to give like firm opinions. But I was very iffy on Viola's design when I first saw it, because it was like, oh, all these like colors are really clashing.
Same.
And I'm not sure.
And then what you told me today, like, and what you've just said on the podcast makes her design make a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's a design that makes sense in retrospect when you see, oh, she's trying to be cool, and that gives her a real like charm to her, where it's like, oh, she's like trying and failing.
She's not based. She's cringe.
She's not, yeah, she's cringe. No,
Yeah.
I wrote that in my notes. I was like, she's cringe fail, but that's what I love about her.
Yeah, it's very relatable, like, because like that's what, like, to me, an 18-year-old is.
Yeah, like
It's very authentic.
like, oh, this is for sure gonna make me cool. No.
Nah, sorry, kid.
For anyone listening that's in high school, if you have had the thought, this is going to be my gimmick, please reconsider.
Yeah, I look forward to. I have not touched it. I have been in deadline hell for the last like week.
Oh, I guarantee next episode we'll be more in depth with it, because I'm
Yep.
so early on in this.
It's my birthday Friday, and Bayonetta 3 and the newest episode of Chainsaw Man and the little pack of pork scratchings is gonna be that.
Jesus Christ.
Brian, what's wrong?
You watch Chainsaw Man?
I've watched the new episode of Chainsaw Man,
Oh, the chapter.
as in episode 4.
Yeah.
I've watched episode 1 to 3. We talked about it last week.
Yeah. No, for me and Rebecca, it's Chainsaw Man Tuesday, and we watch it every
Yeah,
Tuesday.
no, me and Michelle watched it together, and it makes me so happy.
We got One Piece on Friday.
Yeah, very excited for that One Piece.
Yeah. They've started a new arc. It's called the Egghead Island.
Huh.
We're finally meeting that character.
I'm excited for the Frankie stocks are going up.
Oh, yeah, they are. Frankie's hype. So I'm hype.
You know what I'm happy about right now? A game from like 30 years ago.
Oh yeah?
Well, not quite. Parasite Eve.
Yeah.
I've been digging deep into emulator shit. I'm starting to become one of those people who sits down and tries to make emulators work right. But yeah, I've been like, you know, getting more into kind of emulators and stuff. I think a part of me has just given up on ever owning all the retro games I want to own because that market's so fucked now.
The market's fucked, and a lot of the companies that own those games just refuse to make them more accessible. Because I would kill for like a Parasite Eve on the Switch or just any
because
console
Capcom usually do a
like...
really good job of re-releasing their old catalog, don't they?
So but Parasite Eve is Square.
Sorry, no. That's the one they made as a response to Capcom style games, is it?
You see it, and it does almost kind of have a Parasite Eve.
Or
it does have a Capcom
there is
vibe.
something Capcom-y. Yeah, I think in hindsight it was nearly definitely made as a response to like Resident Evil. But I think what I am really, really enjoying what little I've played of this game so far. But what I'm really enjoying about it is like a lot of the staff from Final Fantasy VII worked on Parasite Eve, and it's like experiencing the other half of something you love. You know, because it's like, oh, whoa, it's like there is a lot that is so similar about the two. And it's like, it's so hard to put your finger on because like they're not similar like genres, they're not similar like, you know, types of entertainment. Like one is a fantasy RPG, one's a horror game. But there's just a shared like vibe. Yeah. You know, and it's so cool. You know, one thing I've always going to talk about on this podcast is how good design doesn't age. That is true here. There is a cutscene of a rat transforming into a monster. It fucking rules. Today.
I watched that whole thing a little while back. I watched like a Let's Play of it. I was watching my friend play it, and yeah, it's like, oh, this like aged really well.
So well.
Like, it's still horrifying to watch this like rat basically turn inside out.
Yeah, totally. And then like the main character Aya, she just fucking rules. She's just she's just a tough lady who does her shit. Actually, I really wanted to ask Neve about it because I don't know if Neve's ever played Parasite Eve, but part of me suspects that if she had, her Lara Croft collection would have a little Aya space in there.
Yeah.
She's really, really cool.
Aya does seem like a very Neve character to enjoy if she does.
The battle system is super interesting because it's kind of like an active time battle survival horror system.
Yeah.
So it's like, imagine playing Resident Evil except you have active time battle bars.
Yeah, because you're like running. You're like you'll be put into a battle situation, and you'll just have the limitations of wherever you were as like the screen locks.
And like you can run freely, you can run around freely, but you can only like attack and heal like when your bar fills up, and it's really interesting.
And you're so like and also so you can run around freely. So as these things are like jumping at you, you're trying to like dodge.
Yeah.
As you build meter,
but then
and
also
then once you build
like
meter, you pull out the gun and
land yourself in the optimum like position to attack, and it's cool. Like it's really, really cool.
That sounds kind of like Transistor.
Yeah,
I think that'd be the best comparison, actually.
I don't know if I have too much more in depth to say about it, just because like I'm still very early in it. But man, as a game that passes the vibe check, I am in. I am excited to see where this is going.
One thing I'll say, because I'm curious how you'll feel about the ending. Daniels is the true OG of that game.
He's your sergeant, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the sergeant she has.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, would totally recommend it to just anyone who cares about like the cream of the crop of that era, because it is also a game that's like it looks old as shit. It still feels like something that like money went into. I'm having a great time with this game. It feels weirdly timeless, and so if anyone's curious about it, go check it out. It's like, it was a game that never reached the heights of like the Final Fantasies, the Resident Evils, but it should have. You know, it's got something. Emails.
No, John, I've got a bit for Quicktime Events.
Go for it.
No, can you just
Quicktime Events.
Okay, I've got here fuck the news. €600 €600 for the new PlayStation.
It's okay, sweetie. It's okay, sweetie. It's okay.
€600 for the new PlayStation VR. What the fuck are you doing, guys?
Emails.
Okay, I got 3 emails here. I was gonna do more because we didn't have any news.
We're rolling a bit late.
But we talk too much shit about media and computer games.
Yeah.
And so I'm only gonna give us 2 or 3 emails.
Well, I thought this was an emails-based podcast.
Oh, I fucking hate emails. Like, okay.
I knew it! I knew it!
Okay. If you did want to send us an email, like, Shane, do you know our email address?
It is Let's Fight a Boss.
Nope.
Oh,
Okay, Shane, I'll tell you what it fucking isn't.
No?
That.
Oh, okay.
Ask Let's Fight a Boss.
Ask Let's Fight a Boss.
So, Shane, say it.
Ask Let's Fight a Boss.
Shane, not ask Let's Fight a Boss. Ask.
Oh, I thought it was a butt based.
Try again.
Okay. Ask Let's Fight a Boss.
Shane, it's ask.
Ask.
Oh my god. Bryan, strike him off the. He's never coming back on
Dude, are you giving us snark?
A little bit.
I miss Neve.
Fucking Canadians.
Yeah.
Shane. Fox.
Bryan.
Kate. Huh? Ask Let's Fight a Boss at
Ask
gmail.com.
Let's Fight a Boss
Okay.
at gmail.com.
I want at least 5 good emails. If I don't get 5 good emails for the next episode, I'll do it.
I'm gonna
I'll
come.
fucking do it.
Do you mind if I do a little public service announcement as well? I saw some people being like, oh, I'd love to see Let's Fight a Boss, but I'm not going to be able to make it to MagFest. This is one of those situations where, like, it's not fucking optional.
Yeah.
Everyone listening to this if you've listened to a full episode of this podcast, you have to come to MagFest.
Yeah.
And you have to see us.
Like, we're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not there, I'm going to be like, where is user 1214?
Yeah.
You know who you are, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be really upset.
When I met with John today, he looked me dead in the eyes and went, "You better be at fucking MagFest. You listen to the podcast. You are contractually obligated to go to MagFest."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, what do you want for lunch?
And I was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, it was really jarring.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just how I talk. Bryan, what do we got?
Okay. Oh, that's a typo. But that's my typo. Actually, it's not a typo. It's where you, like, merge 2 sentences together and it has the sentence from a previous email overlapping with the other one because I thought I had deleted that sentence and I was like, I remember that from last. Okay. This is from Philip and it says Chainsaw Ma'am. That's kind of funny.
Okay. It's already off to a great start.
Can you imagine tastes? Can you remember smells? I think that's called synesthesia.
Yeah.
Wait.
No, wait. Synesthesia. Yeah. Synesthesia is where you.
I thought that's
you
like
can-
seeing
you can hear
colors.
color-
Yeah,
oh,
you-
seeing
you can
colors,
perceive. No, I think it's you can perceive like other senses.
Yeah.
Isn't it your senses overlap?
Yeah.
So you can kind of relate and borrow from
the
them.
question of this is, can you
imagine tastes or remember smells?
Yeah, everyone can do that,
Oh yeah.
right?
So like for me as a kid, I can remember certain medicines that my mom would have had to given me, like, you know, just really, really bad cough medicine.
So wait, are there people who can't imagine taste?
Apparently, yeah.
Well, it's
Can you?
kind of in the similar. Yeah. I was gonna say it's another psychology thing is how people
The mind's eye.
yeah, the mind's eye is
Yeah,
like everyone has their own version of the mind's eye. Where if you went like imagine an apple, not everyone will have like just like, oh, I picture just a red crisp apple on a table. Some people it's like, oh, I think of the concept, I think of the word apple, but I'm not thinking of the object.
Or they might think of the texture, or they might think of like the weight or the smell.
So when I think of the word apple, I think specifically of the sensation of biting an apple.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like everyone's gonna have their own like
Yeah.
internal perception.
Yeah, like I can basically like obviously it's not as nice as actually trying a piece of food, but I can think of any food I want and I'll get a really strong like if I think of a food I don't like, I'll gag.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Or like you'll have a bad memory and maybe the food is part of that bad memory, and so it's like a bigger thing when you remember that smell or
Yeah,
taste.
it's my train station prawn.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden that layers.
I can't fucking do that.
And you and then your other senses kick in, and you have the entire scape of it.
Do you have any, like, this might be a weird direction to go in this, do you have any smells you almost relate to a person or an event?
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely, like, I think, like, childhood growing up in the suburbs, you would know different households use different laundry detergents or different fabric softeners, or they might just have, like, a certain kind of candle that they would light during the winter seasons, but, like, you would smell it off their jackets or off their clothes. And, like, like here in Ireland, it would be the case that every kid would wear their own school or they would, like for us, we're all wearing our school uniform, but like on PE day, you're wearing your tracksuit, and it's always the case that you have to take your jumper off because it gets too hot halfway through the game, and everyone leaves their jumper in a heap. But when you go back to get your jumper, you know which one's your jumper because it smells like your house. And if you pick someone else's jumper up, you smell it, and you're like, well, that's Sam's jumper, or that's Cian's jumper.
My friend Manuch, his mom was like an amazing cook, and like even just like, you know, calling for him to come out, like the smell of like spices and like kind of coriander and stuff like from his hall was so strong, and it always smelled so good, and I was always so jealous. I was like, that dude is like a fucking king.
So jelly.
I have two childhood smells that come to mind, and I didn't have a strong sense of smell for a long time because I had like one of those deviated septums. But one is when I would go home and my grandmother was making borscht. If you guys know what that is, it's basically like beet soup essentially.
Yes.
It's got a very distinct smell. And when I would walk in the door, I could immediately smell if they were making like a batch of it, because it would just like hit you like a wall as soon as you walk through the door. So I can picture that I can like smell that in my brain anytime I just think about it. The other one, and this is paying something off that we said earlier, opening card packs. Back in the day, like when you'd open a card pack, that had a very distinct smell.
The factory seal.
The factory seal, like you'd open it and you go, oh, this like smells like cards.
See, for me, it's the anticipation with the crinkle on the foil.
Yeah, the crinkle, and you go,
and like it could be anything. It's a fucking Diglett.
yeah.
Like it's a fucking water card.
Yeah. But you still appreciate the open seal smell and texture of it. That's one thing I miss about mostly focusing on the digital side of that stuff, is like I do kind of like the textile experience of collecting cards. And like especially like going and buying them. Nowadays everyone just like goes on, you know, seller websites and just gets exactly what they need.
Yeah.
Whereas like I want to get like boxes of cards. A friend like called me out as being stupid because it's like, why are you buying like a big box of cards for when you know what you want? I was like, I just want to sort through cards and just like get that experience.
I mean, it's a thing I've talked about like a dozen times on this podcast, but like back in the day, finding a DVD copy of Akira was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's all we had.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Philip. That was a very inspiring email. That's a good example of a good email. I know I get condescending, but I will praise when it is good. That was a great email, genuinely. Okay, this one is from Ian, and we got 3 questions here.
Okay.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know. Okay, all right, Ian. I know what you're going for. Okay. If a game company came to you and asked for a unique mechanic to add to their game, what would you each suggest?
Like, just think up a brand new game mechanic.
Or it could be a mechanic from another genre, but put into...
I'm always going to default to style meters.
Style
My
meters are always
brain
good.
brain is always going to be like, can you fit a style meter in that?
I'm going to pitch a game. It's called Little Grindy Jaws. And it's about a little girl, but she has these really giant jaws. And the mechanic is that you have to catch enemies and put them in your jaws and then mash A to like grind them up.
Yeah.
But then you get different power-ups depending on how much you grind them up.
Ooh, that's good.
And so you have to kind of be careful with the timing of it while also avoiding attacks from other enemies.
It could be like a digestion meter as well, where if she didn't chew her food enough, she's gonna get like she's gonna get heartburn, or she's gonna like...
Brian, sometimes you need to melt the ice door and you need the heartburn.
You do. But sometimes she does need a settled tummy because it's more.
Sometimes she has to go to a tea party and she has to be chill, and you can't have an upset tummy for that.
You have to endure the whole thing.
Yep.
That's pretty good. No, like I do like style meters. I'd love to see one in like a more traditional 3D platformer.
Yeah.
Like you get a bit of that, and sometimes in Hat in Time, where like they do want you to like get through the obstacle course, and they will reward you. Like Demon Turf does that a little bit, or there is an alternate to that. I'd love to see like a Mario game. They'll never do it. Like you know how Mario games used to have a point thing in the corner?
Yeah.
And it used to mean something. I don't know what it meant.
Yeah.
But it meant something.
That's a old remnant of arcade days that they just kind of migrated over with like
Do you know
the NES.
I really like in Mario 3D World that they have that fucking crown, and that's how they made it a point with the point system. But that crown with the bragging rights, that should be in more multiplayer games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I know if you're playing like a shooter, you do get like the player of the match or best play of the game, but more implementations like that should be in more multiplayer games because it does work with the community, whether that's a local or it's online.
One that I would recommend, and it's something I've thought about a lot, but I just can't perceive how you would execute it, is dynamic music built into the combat. So not just like DMC5 being the obvious example, where it's like, oh, the higher your style ranking goes, the more layers the backtrack has.
Or you know how Red Dead Breath of the Wild has stuff when you're kind of getting on a horse and it kind of kicks in a different tempo.
Yeah.
So a really great
I want like where you're like doing the actions makes the background music like go, like it's basically creating the like notes
So
of it.
Killer Instincts had that.
Has that in the menu.
It doesn't just do it in the menu though. It's like a different version of the track plays if you're walking towards or walking away from your opponents. And so like I think there is stuff they could do.
There's something there.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine them like timing beats to attacks because that's a specific thing, but definitely like layering on different instrumental parts of the music for what you're doing could probably work.
Yeah.
It's in some kind of grid games, like it's in Tetris Effect, because I know I was talking about that last episode, and it's going to come up with another question in a bit. The Cryptid and Necro Dancer and the Cadence of Hyrule spin-off have it.
True.
But they're rhythm games, so but
Yeah,
the
I'm
rhythm
thinking-
games
I'm thinking
as
like
the foundation,
action.
but
Yeah.
then
I'm thinking of like an action or like shooter.
yeah,
or
where like
something.
you're in complete control of the tempo and the flow.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's also shooters like that. I think it's called RPM or RBM. Like, bullets per minute, I think is what it's supposed to be called, and it's basically like that. It's like Crypt of the Necrodancer, but instead it's like a Doom shooter.
Cool.
So yeah,
No, it's definitely doable, but I think it has to be from the very beginning of the development of the game. It needs to be considered.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
Because it affects everything. Okay. But yeah, it was if a game company came to you, but we don't know what game company it is. Nintendo, Platinum.
Any of you listening, feel free to ask us for consultants fees first.
What's-
Konami, what else you got? Like who else you gonna turn? Fucking no one. Okay.
What's the name of Yu Suzuki Studio?
Wise.
Would you help them?
I think they need more than me.
Okay. Second question is, what is a story/fiction that you wish was more well known? The examples Ian has here are the SCP Foundation or Gemini Home Entertainment.
You guys know I'm a big anime fan.
Oh yeah.
I like this show called Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think I checked that out once.
Yeah. I've heard that
So
name.
pieces of media that we would like to be more well known.
Or it could be story. Like, I love the oral storytelling of like Irish folklore, and I know Halloween's just been and gone, but that's been so Americanized and diluted, and people don't know how to pronounce Samhain. I'd love if that was just more well known.
Okay, I think I got one. I don't think among modern anime fans, but modern anime fans I mean like last 10-15 years, I don't think Yu Yu Hakusho ever got its flowers like it should have. And I know maybe it's a bit different in America because it did air on television, but I just feel like it's just not a show you ever hear referenced, and it's like, to me, like Yu Yu Hakusho kind of beats all the big three.
Well, especially because Yu Yu Hakusho, in comparison to like Evangelion, which like continued to get like remasters and new media.
Yeah.
Yu Yu Hakusho finished its run and just was like, that's done.
Yeah, it's
Like,
done.
no more.
And like I feel like it really is like the missing link between kind of like Dragon Ball Z and what we now think of as shonen.
Yeah.
You know, like I really and like just still an incredible story, just still like such amazing characters, such brilliant arcs, and yeah.
You?
In a similar vein, I'm really grasping at straws for what I can think of that's like not noticed. My brain immediately went to Ippo because
You're right. You're
100%
100% right.
Very few people I talk to have actually read or watched Hajime no Ippo, and it's a very good boxing anime that I just love.
See,
to death.
I think that's the
And-
problem, is that it's a boxing anime.
Oh yeah,
And like not a problem with the show, but a problem with people wanting to check it out because they're like, I mean, like I remember
Boxing's for lads.
yeah.
I remember like Michelle watched some anime, but like I remember watching Hajime no Ippo and her just being like, all the fights look the same, and it's like, fuck. And
don't
it's
get
like,
it.
I get how it looks like that when you're like seeing like, you know, one episode every 12 episodes, but like when you're in it, like those fights are just their own world.
It doesn't help also that the first 70 episodes of the anime are very early 90s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and they look it. Like
yeah.
like they look aged in a way that does not look great, but my god, do those, like especially that last season, looks just unreal.
And the manga also, George
Murakawa.
he has a very distinct style that he's developed over the years, but when you look at the first like few arcs, it's like he's still figuring out his overall like design aesthetic. So like I understand why it's not as appealing to some people, because there's a lot of barriers to entry, but if you get over it, man, you're in for a
and
good
like
time.
it doesn't take a lot of effort to get over it. I think it just takes like some sitting down.
Yeah.
But oh man, yeah, like Hajime no Ippo is right up there with like the very best. What about you, Brian? You got it?
Just oral storytelling as a cultural touchstone. It gets lost. It was never written down, and I've watched a few documentaries on it. There's actually, I might be able to find it and add that as a loot drop in as well.
Okay.
But it's a guy who lives in an island out in Ireland, and he's not alive anymore because this was filmed decades ago. But he doesn't read or write. He only speaks Irish, and I can just about understand the guy. Like, he's speaking a dialect of Irish that, like, John, like, we are so far removed from.
Wow.
Colloquially. But I'm sorry, I can't think of an anime.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Our brains just immediately default to, oh shit, what do I like that I watch?
Because like I can think of other more obscure stuff, like, you know, Gatari, or like just like, you know, Lane and stuff like that. But there's no part of me that thinks that those anime are ever going to be like mainstream or popular. But Yu Yu Hakusho and Hajime no Ippo, it's like they should be more.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, and then the last question from Ian was, do you guys cook?
I love cooking. Not long ago, I spent a long evening preparing myself a beautiful beef stroganoff.
Ooh.
And then when I finally finished, I took a little piece and I put it in my mouth and I chewed it and I swallowed it, and I was like, oh shit, I don't like beef stroganoff.
I really don't like cooking.
Really?
No, I feel like it's such a chore.
I fucking love cooking.
I love eating, and sometimes I'm in the humor and I'm happy to cook, but other times I just it's like folding laundry or something.
Oh man! So my favorite thing to cook is steaks. I
Good.
love
A good
cooking
steak.
Okay,
meat.
do you know
Good
what?
grill.
For me, it's the cleanup. I hate cleaning up after cooking.
That's my thing.
Yeah, cleaning up sucks.
And so whenever I'm cooking, I'm always like super careful, and I'm like, oh, if I reuse this pan, then I don't have to clean. You know, I only have to wash it once, or you know, I'm such a weird. Like, I'm trying to think about the metrics and the optimization more than
Yeah.
fucking cooking. Oh,
How do I minimize the amount of work that I'll have to do later?
just use the dishwasher.
See, to me, I'm like, well, that's future John's problem.
Yeah, I guess most chefs just have someone in the kitchen. They're just constantly on
Oh.
loop. Just yeah.
I have such a weird relationship to cooking, because I'm kind of where you were at right now, where I look at it like I have to do the hassle of like prep work, actually cooking it, the first step is actually just finding a recipe that you want to do. That's already the first barrier of entry, and then the cleanup. I do like cooking when it's like a shared experience, when it's with someone else. I don't want to cook by myself, but if it's with like a friend or we're like doing something like that, it's like, yeah, I'll help cook. I'll like do my part. The thing that's funny though is that out of high school, I was gonna go to university or a trade school to be a chef.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
That was like the almost path I went down, and like there's an alternate universe in the like many universes where I'm like a Red Seal chef. But before that I had been working at a restaurant, and I'd been like in like the back area, and I'd done like prep work, and I had been doing like all the different like line work, like
all the stations,
all the stations and everything like that, learning how to do call. And I was like, I like this. But as soon as I got into the actual school and I did day one, I was like, I just had that crystallizing moment of, I don't want to do this.
That's a good
Like,
moment, right?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, at least you figured it out on day one.
I figured it out on day one, and I was able to switch courses to I did nutrition for like a semester. Just I was like, that's something similar. And
That's a useful skill.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think at some point everyone thinks about.
How to do nutrition.
Yeah.
But it was just funny thinking about it now. It's like I never cook, and like back then I like bought like actual professional level knives and things. Of
It's
that
interesting
nature,
to hear
so-
about like talking about wanting to cook with friends, because I am the complete opposite.
Oh, for you it's a
Fuck off
solitary.
out of
When
the
I am
kitchen.
cooking, get the fuck out of my kitchen.
yeah.
Yeah, you're just gonna be clogging up the flow.
Yeah, I got that.
But yeah, thank you, Ian. Those were some great questions. Okay, and then this is the last email.
Okay,
We're gonna do one more,
one more.
and this one is from Cole, and it's seeking out bad games.
Okay.
Okay, hello to my favorite postmodern JRPG party. Sure. Okay, Brian's talk about playing bad Tetris.
Really quickly, just to cut you off. Who's everyone's role in this JRPG party? What's everyone's?
Well, last time we did this, I said Neve was healer, and I got fucking shit.
Yeah, how sexist was that?
And-
Fucking hell.
And I think it was called like Brian's last episode.
Brian, she's still. she's.
right.
I think that was maybe Brian's second last episode.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Brian's last episode was when you couldn't remember the name of the Master Sword.
Like what a fucking failure of a fan. So no, I don't want to be the fucking healer. You don't want to be the
I'll
healer?
be the healer. I'll be healer.
It's a fucking chump job. I don't want to do that shit. I want to be the heavy, but their attack takes so long to wind up. By the time they're ready to attack, the battle's over. You can only ever so he's only useful in boss battles, but to get the XP up, you need to.
I'm the straight up DPS, but for fuck's sake, like keep me healed, keep me buffed, because I'll go down like that.
You're the monk. You're the
And when John dies, the story it goes game over. It's one of those JRPGs. Fucking hate this shit.
Jesus
So does that
Christ.
make by just default Neve the mage of some kind? Or
No,
archer?
Neve's a rogue. Neve's a
yeah,
complete
yeah,
rogue.
Yeah.
rogue, yeah. Anyway,
Okay. Hello to my favorite postmodern JRPG party. Brian's talk about playing bad Tetris. I connected with real hard because I actively seek out bad Tetris ports. Hell yeah. My two favorite are the back of the United Airlines seats. I know exactly what they're talking about here, which is mostly bad because you're playing on a chair and the Comcast cable box on demand one, where there's like an entire second of input lag. Both of these versions do score T-spins properly, which I find hilarious. No, because do you remember we were on a Virgin Atlantic flight, John, and they did have, it was like a wired Wiimote, but if you held it horizontally, you could play like really.
Oh, I've held so many of them.
Yeah, and like, or like how you go to a hotel in the late 90s and they'd have that fucked up N64 controller, but it had like a coin meter that you'd have to fill up, and then you would play like not Mario.
yes, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so one of these right off the top of my head, and John, you probably know what I want to talk about. Okay, you know how like Puzzle Bobble is a great game.
Yes.
And we all know what it is. You got these cute little dinosaurs, and they're firing these bubbles.
I like the evil dinosaur, Devlin.
Yeah.
And if you color match them, 3 of them pop. And the idea is that you're supposed to try and clear as many as you can. And sometimes you need to shoot one, and it ricochets off the wall and kind of tucks itself in up above what you're trying to get. So on the Sky Digital menu, and so Sky Digital is the main cable service that was in the UK and Ireland. See how I put and?
Yeah.
Yeah, not slash because they're not interchangeable.
Yeah. And there was this thing, it was called Honeycomb Hive or Honeycomb Madness. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
I think so, yeah.
And it was just like, it may as well have been a Flash game, and it had the thing where the music just loops itself every 5 minutes, but it was just a puzzle bobble clone with bees, and you're shooting different colored flowers in the beehive. And you would play with a television remote. And I'm not talking like Wii remote on its side. I'm talking at like a TV remote pointed at the TV with directional buttons to navigate a menu, but this time you're steering the projectile aim meter. And that thing was really bad, but it was free. And when you're 15, you get what you get and you play it.
So I remember when I was a kid, there was this like kind of really old PC text adventure. It wasn't a text adventure. It had like, you know, like really rudimentary, like literally Microsoft Paint kind of drawings. And it was just like, you know, what do you do in this situation? You'd have to type in an answer. But the thing about this game, it was on like my school's PC, and the only time you could play it was when it was your turn to use the computer, which would happen once a week. And so we would all play this weird little text dungeon game where you'd have to get further and further in the dungeon, but every new screen was like fucking crack, because it's like, oh, holy shit, it's a big dragon, you know. And it was like amazing because you didn't know what was coming next, and that was your one chance a week. It's like, imagine playing Mario once a week, and when you died you had to stop playing it. Like, it was that.
Oh, that would be genuine crack.
Yeah, like imagine getting to Bowser when that happened and just being like, what the fuck, you know.
You get your one like dose every week.
Yeah. Oh,
what about you, Shane?
Trying to think of like games like that. I back in the day had a lot of like phone games on my various phones. I've had so many jank versions of Brick Breaker.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it scratches that exact itch of, I'm bored standing around somewhere, I'm just gonna do some equivalent of Brick Breaker.
Yeah, you're just moving the paddle left and right.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, not even paddle. Sometimes it's just like you're doing like a trajectory thing of like, okay, try to get the like ball to go in the exact way so it hits the most things.
Yeah.
The other one is like just trying out random jank gotcha games I find on the App Store.
Yeah, because like I guess they're all free to play for the first like 20 minutes. And it's interesting to see how they look at the popular games and try to invent their own version of currency, and what the sub-currency is, and what the, you know, paid currency is, and how they trickle it out and get you interested.
You remember I was talking in Vampire Survivors like a couple of weeks ago on the podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Found out that that's like a clone of another game.
Yeah.
I think Vampire Survivors is kind of shitty, but everyone fucking loves it.
And the funny thing is, they've also now there's like almost like a lineage now, because there's I think it's technically a mod of Vampire Survivor that's HoloLive themed. That someone has like recreated the entire thing, but it's like HoloLive,
right?
VTuber characters, and they all have their distinct little like move sets. So it's like there's a lineage of that, like, down the way.
Games are mad.
Games are mad. Imagine having a podcast about them.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Patreon shoutouts.
Thank you so much for donating to us.
Thank you. Okay, Brian, could you run that back again, but like less like sarcastic? So Brian, just really deliver your most heartfelt. Like, we get such a for a shitty video game podcast, we get such amazing support on Patreon. I'm genuinely so grateful to everyone who does it. And to really just hammer that message home, here's Brian.
Swallow those little cash pigs. Keep on squealing. No, only cut that out.
No, I don't know. I think we leave it in. I think we leave it in. So, okay, Brian, I'll save it. If you just heard what Brian said about our patrons, we have genuinely just lost so much money. So if new people would be willing to come in and like just shield us from that deficit, I'd really appreciate it.
Can I like add to that a little bit? I have a confession. I'm actually not subbed to the Patreon, but I have access to the Discord because I'm one of the lovely mods that you'll meet.
Did you used to be subbed to the Patreon?
No, I snuck in there. Before you guys even put up the wall, I was already
Did you
like
used to be
snuck in
subbed to
there.
my Patreon?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how we.
Yeah,
that's how
and
we
then he
started
was like, "Oh, we need mods. This is one dude in the iPatch Wolf Discord called Foxcade," and I was like, "I don't care, John.
But
just had the kid. I don't care."
But I always feel like I'm missing something because I'm not subbed to the Patreon. Especially recently, Neve and Oni are doing their
Gay
go
road trip
through their gay road trip.
Xenogear or Xenoblade.
Xenoblade
Chronicles
Chronicles
3, yeah.
And I don't have access to that.
Okay.
Nope.
And I continue. I'm like, I can't find out what their thoughts are.
If you want to listen to that, we can just like
Well,
we
go with
can
the
just
bit.
set
Yes,
some,
and. Yes,
we can
and.
just we can just set it up so that you pay fucking €3
Oh,
yeah.
to the Patreon,
Yes.
like everyone goddamn else.
You know what? We got such a surge of pledges when that first episode came out.
That's right, Brian. And we're in the process of recording our next episode too. So thank you, patrons.
But yeah, thank you very much for your support. I know I'm mean, but it's because you gotta be mean to the little kids.
Because it's because he's severely emotionally damaged. Everyone.
Oh yeah, it ain't working right.
Oh, okay. What do we got here?
John, I have the first one lined up there for you.
Okay. Well, let me just loosen up the old lips and just say that I am so excited about reading this because I appreciate our patrons so much, especially messages like this. Oh, what the... Okay. This is from Kami Chameleon. That's a great name.
Yeah.
Welcome to the world's strongest video game podcast Discord serve. Oh my fucking god. Brian, I can't read this. I'm just too dyslexic.
Welcome to the world's strongest video game podcast Patreon Discord server. Patrons shout out message.
Okay, I got the rest of it. I would ask that you fill in the blank of the classic meme.
Blank is fun. You're all just mean.
Shenmue is fun. You're all just mean.
That is true.
Dude.
I'm just going along with them. Yeah, yes,
Face.
and. I'm just we're so close to the end. I'm just pandering them to get on with it.
Dude, we were so close to the end.
What's your guys' version of that?
I got nothing.
Ooh, Legend of Korra is fun. You're all just mean.
Yeah, I can
It's
see
a
that.
very divisive series, but I stand by it.
I like Korra.
Yeah, it's cool.
See, I just really like Chris Nolan films. Just one of those kind of guys.
It's a very divisive opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll say.
What's divisive opinion? Jinbei is fun. You're all just mean.
Do people not like Jinbei?
Yeah, apparently people don't like Jinbei from One Piece.
Really, that is
I'm sorry,
astounding.
people don't like the fucking really cool, chill fish who knows karate.
In the most recent chapter, he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
I was about to say. They just added to his design.
Like people are like, he was added too late, and it's like, dude, he's been
He's been in it for an arc. Calm down.
yeah, he's been like Luffy met him before the time. Like he's a cornerstone of the.
He's earned his spot in that crew.
Yeah, Jinbei's class.
I cannot wait to get a figure of him in that Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Lively Cadaver says, signed up for Patreon high out of my mind. Like y'all's podcast so much. Best $3 I've ever spent. So you not only have us recommending it, you also have Lively Cadaver also recommending it.
That's what I like to hear. That's some positive feedback. All right, this one is from it's from a nameless. Okay, nameless Captain Gator says, email us let's fight a boss a buttcast@gmail.com. Get your most bootylicious questions answered by Bryan, Neve, and or Shayne, and John, the assless
Well,
one.
hang on a fucking minute. Hang on a fucking minute. Sorry.
Everyone knows John is not the ass.
I am not assless. I have an ass.
Yeah,
Neve talks about it sometimes.
John has an ass like a Pixar mom. He may as well be like a fucking JCB because that shit's a dumper.
Look,
I
I have cycled a lot. I have kicked a lot. I have done a lot of ass adjacent exercises, and the nature has bestowed me with a creature.
A
Okay.
swollen hole.
I think I have a new name to change the nameless channel to again.
Oh, please don't do that. I just get so bored of changing it back. I don't even.
I was just having fun for a while. I just kept changing it.
From Neo Black Mage. Before I signed up for the Patreon, I was incomplete. Now I'm the strongest form of complete.
Nice.
Yep, that's what happens.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Mark the Ginger One said, came for the nameless one, stayed for the queens.
Hell yeah.
Mark, you may fucking leave.
I like Mark.
You're
Mark's
solid,
good.
Mark.
Mark's sound.
No, he's not. Clearly, he's not.
He's good. He's always taking those cosplay photographs.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go, Mark. 2/3 of the podcast approves of you, and 1/3 wants you fucking dead.
Okay, and then this last one is from Casino. Okay, that's a name. I am not currently supporting Let's Fight a Boss on Patreon right now, but I like to throw money at you guys every now and then. If you read this by March 2022, I will add a whole euro to my next monthly payment. That's it. That was 6 months ago.
Damn it.
Just missed it.
Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
Well, that's
That's
a
a
bummer to end
whole
on.
euro
Okay,
you guys are missing.
so,
out.
like-
everyone you're gonna have to make up the difference because that's gonna come out of the budget.
Like,
Yep.
guys, funds are low.
Yeah.
Casino ain't up in that pledge.
Yeah, casino. Look, I'm going to say it. Casino let us down.
Really bailed on us just before Christmas.
Yeah. I guess little Nevie ain't getting her blankie, which means she's going to freeze to death.
No,
I was gonna reveal a little bit behind the curtains. The reason that Neve isn't here is because they can't afford her anymore.
yeah.
She's really costly to get on here. She takes a lot of money.
So yeah, please,
If you want more Neve, you got to pay for it.
do you want Shayne on this podcast again? If not,
If you want to avoid this situation happening again, make sure to pledge.
Yeah. Absolutely. Loot drop.
Shayne, you're going to be too polite about this, but me and John are going to force your hand. You recently put out a new video on your Foxcade YouTube
Yes.
channel. What's it about?
It is about the evolution of the Yu-Gi-Oh card game.
And this is part 1.
This is part 1. So I was looking at the project and I was like, I need part of this to go up before I go on my trip to Ireland and the UK. So
Separate countries.
Yes, separate countries. So I made separate videos. The first half is talking about the quote unquote old school Yu-Gi-Oh. So everything from the original concept when Kazuki Takahashi made it up in his original version of Yu-Gi-Oh, which is a bunch of board games within a creepy kind of era, to the Synchro era, which is 5Ds. And I think that's kind of where you tapped out at, John, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Too much for John.
I will tolerate XYZ summons and nothing more.
yeah, that's a line for a lot of people. So I kind of go over a lot of that, the history of the anime's relation to the card game, yada yada. If you have any interest in that franchise, give it a watch. And the next one is going to be about everything from that era to where we are now in the game, and kind of just understanding the context of, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh is very complicated now, but how do we get there?
Cool, Shayne.
Yeah.
That sounds, yeah.
Bryan just kind of tuned out for all of that, and I appreciate that he at least let me go on that little tangent.
That's all you're getting.
I'm not getting paid for this, so that's about all I'm getting.
I'm going to buy you drinks again.
Okay, fair.
At the zoo tomorrow,
Yeah.
we're getting treats.
Oh.
Okay. I got 2. The first one was that man on the island speaking in Irish, talking about the history of Irish oral storytelling, which is a lost art, and I think everyone should just give this video a watch. I think it's part of a greater documentary series, but there's just a bit where they go to Ireland because storytelling is so rich in our culture. But then, this other YouTube video, this was a fucking, nostalgia bomb. Can you say that, or is that cringe?
No.
I think saying cringe is cringe.
Yeah.
Shit. I keep saying. So Rebecca read that Louis Theroux diary book as well, and his sons keep just being
His
like,
middle son is like, Dad, that's cringe.
so you know when Homer is cool and Bart and Lisa are really like, oh yeah, but you wouldn't know what cool is, and they don't like that he's wearing a Rastafarian hat at a rap show with Cypress Hill. It's just like Louis' 2 eldest sons are like Bart and Lisa in that episode of The Simpsons, and now I'm just like, wait, am I cringe?
Is that cool to say?
Okay, there's a YouTube channel called Julian's Shorts, and I think he makes all kinds of videos, but this is just a technical review of Tommy's Big Loader. You know this toy where you had it was like a little battery-powered engine, and it was on a track, and it would take over different kinds of JCBs. One kind of shoveled balls, one scooped them up into a higher
I
cylinder.
remember the ad for this video.
Yeah. And so it's
the ad for this toy.
Yeah, and so this is a toy I had growing up and I loved it. But for the life of me, I couldn't figure out like how this simple thing was made, because there's so many complicated behind the scenes like puzzles that were solved to optimize this. And he just kind of goes through all the different types of spokes in the wheels and the gears and how it switches to like a different like manual control when it's going up ramps or when it's going down. And it's just this really clever piece of Japanese technology that was just a play toy made by Tomy. And it's just the simplicity of it and how it's still in toys today.
You really get to see the nuts and bolts of it and like how it all functions. That's interesting.
Yeah. I just came across it by accident and I was like, okay. And then I watched it and I was like, it's the greatest video I've ever seen on the internet. But that does it. I hope you enjoyed what this episode was.
Oh, I didn't. I'm so fucking tired, Brian. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. We're going pretty late on that one.
Okay, I've stopped recording now. All right. All right. So
that was great. No, that was really good.
Okay, so Shayne.
Yeah.
If you ever fucking try and force yourself in on this podcast, like,
I'm sorry.
We were like, okay, look, I know this lad's coming over. He's a bit weird, but we'll just, we'll be nice to him. Don't look at the shit.